T minus 30 seconds. T minus 20 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Trap Talk Reptile Network, coolest reptile network in the world, episode 469, Ron St.Pierre. For all of the Treat Tuesdays, what is good? I'm your boy MJ. Hope everyone's having a great start to the week. This is your first time hanging out. You're into learning about reptiles. You want to just more obsess over them and just find out who's keeping what. This is a podcast to be tapping into. So do me a favor, hit the like button first and foremost. If you're into people who keep reptiles outside and can get away with it and you think that's sick, hit the like button right now. Let's get the likes up for Ron St.Pierre. And like I said, if you're just obsessed with reptiles and you want to know who's who, then hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, select all. You'll be reminded of every single podcast that's released under this network, soon to be 7 days a week. This week, 6 days a week, day by day. But listen, thanks for all the love and support. Appreciate everyone in the early birds. You can also listen to any segment, any podcast under Trap Talk Reptile Network, under all major audio platforms, Buzzsprout, Apple, Spotify. So wherever you listen to any Trap Talk Reptile Network episodes, thank you so much. Really means a lot. Appreciate it. Don't forget to support US ARC and US ARC Florida. Head to the second link in the description below. Click on it. If you don't know what US ARC is, go learn all about it, man. Please, especially if you're in Florida as well, click on the US ARC Florida link. Join the team. Help us keep our animal rights all together. We all need to come together. Serious. Numbers matter when it comes to battling legislations. Thank you, Phil Goss. And again, thank you to anyone who went to the US ARC auction at Tinley and raised $60K. That's epic. Tonight's episode is brought to you by the Reptile Super Show, #1 reptile show in the country. June is right around the corner. Big things popping. Thank you, Rami, for doing amazing next level things by the Reptile Super Show. And shout out to all the vendors. Shout out to anyone who's excited. But please head over to Reptile Super Show on IG. Give them a follow. Stay on top of everything. And yes, by subscribing and following this podcast, you will get updates on any Reptile Super Show newsletters or anything like that. So thank you so much, Rami. I want to say also tonight's episode is brought to you by good old Mark Hager over at Texas Chondros. Congratulations to Mark, by the way. If you head over to Texas Chondros Instagram page, you'll see that he just had an amazing clutch of nothing but red Neos. Go figure. Beautiful, though. Hey, they're beautiful. But yeah, not one freaking yellow. So maybe if I was you, if you're trying to get your hands on some of that Texas heat, go to Texas Chondros Instagram page, show him some love by giving him a follow and comment on that reel that he just posted, and maybe you get your hands on one of those red Neos. You never know. But thank you so much, Mark Hager. Appreciate all the support, and shout to Texas. Shout to Blake over at Blake Exotic Feeders. Implement quail into your feeding regiments, and you will be happy from it. I'm telling you right now, organically grown on this man's farm. There's no third-party dealing here. This is straight from the source. So if you head over to Blake Exotic Feeders on IG, let him know that MJ from the Trap sent you. He's going to take extra good care of you. And if you're in Florida, for sure, man, please go hit up this guy. He's really hooking up all of Florida right now. So for whatever reason, if you're in Florida and you're not getting your quail through Blake and you need some quail, go hit up Blake right now. Again, let him know that the Trap sent you, and he's going to take extra good care of you. Blake Exotic Feeders on Instagram, okay? Shout out to Gary Shavino, GS Reptiles. Head over to YouTube right now and type in GS Reptiles. Hit that subscribe button. Be ready for that next vlog that Gary drops once a month, I guess. But good thing about Gary is he is so diverse. He has his hands on so many different amazing, unique, underrated reptile species of snakes that he has available to all you guys out there at some point. So by following GS Reptiles on YouTube and IG, you could be on top of everything that he has available. He just posted some yellow neonates right now that I know from a Tamika to Aru pairing. So designer stuff going off over there. But shout out to Gary Shavino, shout out to GS Reptiles, and shout out to you already if you go follow my man. But last but not least, shout out to Focus Cube Habitats, #1 PVC enclosures in the game. Nobody doesn't like Focus Cube. That's a fact. What you see behind me, PVC built design enclosures by Focus Cube Habitat. Flex in Texas all day, every day. Thank you, Steven. Thank you, Ashley. Appreciate you so much. And speaking of Flex in Texas, here he is, the mayor of Chondros Town, and we have Marshall Mendez.
Hey.
Don't bug me, guys. I'm in the live chat.
And yeah, sorry, when Bill's doing his thing. My bad. What's
up? I'm all in. I'm just kidding.
You're good. What's up, fellas?
Hey, Marshall.
How's it going?
It's going good, man. I'm loving this Texas spring weather.
Ooh,
yeah, we had a little. It got warm. We're in what's known as the second false spring of Alabama. Just passed, and then we had 30-degree night last night. So people are covering up their flowers, and had to turn the heat on in the rodent shed, and yeah. So and then it's back up to 75 again tomorrow.
Yeah.
Hopefully that's the last of the winter. We'll
I was
see.
gonna say then you're good. Then you're coasting after that, right? Then you're gonna get pretty bomb ass weather from then, right?
Hopefully, yeah. Well, it gets hot quick, so we'll get spring lasts about feels like 2 or 3 weeks, and then it'll be fucking 100 degrees and humid as hell.
Bill, for you, when's the real heat start to come?
Oh, it's variable, but we've got at least probably another month, maybe 2, before it really, kicks in June. We're usually pretty good in May.
But remind me, Bill, is it just pretty much straight on hot once it gets hot, or do you have random cool days like you do now and in September?
No, we don't get any of that shit. Once it gets hot, it cools down to 90 at night.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oof. Yeah, that's tough.
Yeah.
It's not that bad here,
but maybe high 80s, but we don't get a nighttime, drop in temperature.
But when you have a pool and a hot tub in your backyard, who gives a shit, right? Just hop in.
It helps a little bit. Some big fans.
Oh, by the way, your AC though, that's what's cracking. You have some amazing AC, Bill, for sure.
I know you know.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, I want to give props to Bill though, man. Exciting news. Obviously it's quite the road still ahead, but shout out to your most recent clutch that you posted here, Bill. What's going on with it?
I saw that.
Why are you so excited about it, Bill? I know why you're excited, but let the people know what this clutch means to you.
Well, this is, probably as long as I've been doing this, maybe my second most anticipated clutch ever. I think the first was still the first time the sickness, or the only time the sickness reproduced. But this one's special because this is the first time a female sickness baby has produced.
Wow.
And that's
Nice.
her, on the eggs. And I bred her to one of John Irby's males, what I call Freight Train. He's the son of Soul Train and Striptease, both melanistic animals that John has been working with for a while. So that's Freight Train right there. And
I noticed that the phenotype of those look very similar to each other. So it'll be interesting to see how the babies look.
They're gonna be nuts.
Yeah, absolutely. They're both pretty heavily melanistic, and so of course that's the look I'm going for.
All right. And then obviously, Texas is on fire, so we can't not at least show off Mark Hager's most recent clutch.
Oh, dude, he killed it.
Yeah,
he killed it. No yellows.
No yellows, bro. Shout out to Mark Hager. Obviously he's a little bummed, which doesn't make sense, but he's like, yeah, it's unfortunate. He's like, it's unfortunate.
He's the only one that would be bummed with that clutch.
I'm telling you, that guy. But anyways, dude, amazing pairing and amazing results from that clutch. Mark Hager, tonight's sponsor. And come on, look, yellows would destroy the view of that. What do you mean? That looks great. So shout out to Mark Hager.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Pretty good. I hope in 50 days that's what I get to show off.
Yeah, I'm rooting for you, bro. And what? So that clutch was number 4, or I'm sorry, remind me what number clutch that is that dropped so far this year.
Well, fortunately, I had number 2 and 3 on the same day. 2 days ago, I had that female and another female lay. So
excellent.
Jesus. Yeah. All right. So
25 eggs in 1 day is a good day.
Yeah, we'll ship that. That's awesome. Now I'm okay. Marshall, I'm going to be surprised if this is the same answer that Bill gave me, but you know who Ron St.Pierre is, right?
I've heard the name a lot, and then maybe I've met him at an early Daytona. He's from Florida, right?
He's definitely a Florida guy, bro.
Okay, yeah. I think maybe we've met a long time ago. I bet we know some of the same people from when I first got into the hobby. I was living in Florida. And I bet we know some of the same people, like importers that I used to deal with, or my dad used to deal with for me back in the day.
Wow. And then obviously, Bill, there's not much you don't know of Ron, correct? Because I know Ron's not really like known for chondros, or he's known for a lot of different reptile species, but what the big respect for Ron is a lot of this stuff he keeps outside and he's successful at it,
Yeah, that's going to be the interesting thing. We've I think it was Buddy and I. Yeah, we had an Australian keeper on several years ago who kept a vast majority of stuff outside during a lot of the year. So it was really interesting to talk to him. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to you two meeting and Ron and getting to know him better, because he's an awesome guy, and I'm looking forward to this round 2. Round 1 for you guys, but shit, it's just return to the trap. So you guys ready to bring Ron on or what?
Let's do
it.
All right. I hope you guys are stoked like I am, and let's get this shit cracking. Time to get your mind right. Time to stay hydrated. Episode 469. Ron St.Pierre, all in the tree Tuesdays. Let's go. Choo.
Good.
You ready for do more in the future? Trap Talk podcasts?
Yes.
Man.
Only Trap Talk. Exclusive.
Yes,
Exclusive. Oh.
So stop calling us.
Rub the spot, get the club to pop. When I come up with the crop, God love it or not. I'm hot from the hop to the rub the spot, get the club to pop. When I come up with the rub the spot, get the club to pop. When I come up with the rub the spot, get the club to pop. When I come up with the rub the spot, get the club to pop. When I come up with everybody, we do it. Everybody, we do it. Do it. Do it. Do it. Rub the spot, get the club to pop. When I come up with the rub the spot, get the club to pop. When I come up with the rub the spot, get the club to pop. When I come up with the rub the spot, get the club to pop. When I come up.
And we're live with Ron St.Pierre out of Florida. What's up, Ron?
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Hey, Ron.
Good to meet you, man.
Yeah.
You too, Bill.
Dude, bro, you never met any of these bums, bro, for sure. I'm pretty sure you might have seen it.
I probably have run into Marshall in the past, maybe at Daytona or something. But
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
I mean, you get hammered by so many people over the years, you can't remember everything. But his name, both of their names precede them, so I knew who they both were.
You're going to run into Marshall again in Daytona this year, right, Marshall?
Afraid not. I wish.
What?
What? You're not going?
What?
Dude.
Daytona's hard for me to get to, man. It's hard. Tinley's so easy.
Yeah.
This will be my first Daytona.
Yeah.
Oh, no shit.
Mine too.
Yeah, so Ron, yeah, we'll have to buy you a beer.
Sounds good.
So
man.
Ron, what part of Florida are you from?
I'm originally from Miami, but now I live in Orlando.
Okay.
So,
I'm born in Miami, lived there for a while. Yeah.
what part of Miami are you from?
When I lived there, most recently, I lived on the beach, Miami Beach. That was like most recently, and that was like 20 plus years ago, though. So it's been a minute. Right. A few years after I got out of school, my wife and I lived there for 3 or 4 years, and then I was born there and kind of raised until 6 or 7 years old.
Right on. Yeah, I lived in Opelika, North Miami area until I was
Okay,
30,
cool.
and then we moved.
And so now you're in Central Florida, Orlando, and how are you? How many months of the year are you able to keep outdoors?
I mean, we produce a lot of different stuff, around 7,000 lizards a year, and then I started working on this this emerald chondro thing. The emeralds I keep outside about 75% of the year. So I really only roll them in when it's going to be below 55 at night. Otherwise, most of the time it's pretty stable. And then the Chondros, man, they don't seem to give a shit about the temperatures.
Wow.
I mean, I've let them get down to 45, no effect whatsoever. They just
Really? Wow.
Now bear in mind that's only at night.
Right, right.
And then in the daytime they rock it back up in temperature.
Which is
they just don't seem to care at all. Like there's been no issues with them. But
and are they in the shade or I guess
no, they're in full sun. But
full sun, okay.
But they're on carts, so I can roll them around depending on what I see. You know, I have the ability to put them in full shade if I need to. I have the ability to they're on a 20. So they're basically it's a 2,500 square foot building with a 2,500 square foot concrete slab in front of it attached to it.
Okay.
So I can roll them in and out, move them wherever I need to. It's flanked by 2 huge oak trees and then a covered walkway. So I can get them in whatever I want.
Hey, Ron, roughly what are the dimensions of those cages that MJ are showing there, the vertical cages?
Yeah, because we're doing them outside, obviously, the cages need to be as large as possible because all kind of shit can go wrong. So they're 4 by 4 by 2 is what I'm currently sitting at.
4 by 4 by 2. Okay.
There's those in that video, some of those are 3 by 2 by 2. Some of those are 4 by 2 by 2. Some of those are 4 by 4 by 2. But those were all prototypes. The new system that I finally am happy with is going to be basically 4 by 4 by 2.
Okay.
So what's going on in the bottom of those?
Those are utility sinks that I can flood if I want to, or I can drain and dry them out. And so when we're not getting high enough humidity, I just flood them and leave them suspended over water.
It's genius.
When the humidity is super high, then I can drain them and leave them. So I should probably back up on how I came to this.
Sure.
So 13 years ago, I was looking around at the herpetocultural landscape, looking for something new to do. That's kind of been my thing. I've been legitimately doing this for 39 years now. And basically what I do is I look for holes in the industry where I think, something could take off. And then I go and fucking do it until I figure it out and I build this. I call it a machine. It's a system that, shoots for everything that they need and to get, really solid production while still supplying, the animals with everything they need to try to get like as high quality an offspring as possible. So 13 years ago or so, I noticed there were nobody was doing these giant anoles. And there's one called the giant blue beauty anole, which is essentially the fucking chondro of lizards. It's bright blue and yellow. It's extremely variable. They all look the same when they're babies, but you never know what you're going to get when you're growing them out. And some of them are pretty radical. So you can end up with like superstar animals out of the same clutch. So you could get some that are just, they're cool, but not.
Is this one of them right here, Ron?
Yeah, that's one.
Okay. This is
beautiful.
So, where are those native to?
Cuba. Yeah.
Okay.
They're all giant Cuban anoles. They get about 22 inches, so they're pretty big. Wow. The babies are nice and big, and
they're badass.
There's a lot to like about them. But when I started this, there was virtually no captive information on any of those things. And what was around was a lot of like conjecture and questionable ideas that they had drawn from some of the things they had seen. So I basically threw it all out. And I went and looked at where they came from and looked at their weather conditions. And I started to build a system. And about a year in, so we're talking about maybe 2013, 2014, I realized that these fuckers have all the same issues that chondros and emeralds have in captivity. The prolapsing, the stuck sheds, the fucking chronic regurgitation syndrome.
Huh. What are they?
Literally everything.
What is their diet? Insects? All insects?
Well, that's what everybody thought, and that's what we thought in the beginning. And 10 years later, I have a completely different opinion on that now. So I started working them out, and as I figured out exactly what was causing the various issues, and I defeated each one, about 5 years in, I was like, well, I've always wanted to do chondros and emeralds. I mean, I've been looking at them almost the entire time I've been doing this, but every time, you know, I do this for a living. I have no other means of income. So every time I look at them, you know, they're pretty unreliable and there's nobody really doing them. Like there are no commercial producers of those animals because they're hard. You know, you gotta have everything right. And obviously they're difficult. And so every time I looked at it, I was like, well, this isn't really something you can make a living on. And then as I went through those anole things and started ticking off all the boxes, I finally got down to one problem, which was the occasional regurgitation. And I think most people that keep these anoles have no idea they do it, because unlike a snake that'll puke up, you know, a big ass rat that you can smell from a mile away, they just vomit a little packet of bugs somewhere in the cage and you'll never know.
Right.
So I mean, and then in the process also, I went and I looked at a lot of other arboreal species. So it seems to me that most, if not all, arboreal reptiles, but particularly the ones that are found at or near the equator, have all the same problems. And as I was deconstructing it, the one thing came down to be the paramount thing, and that is they either feed on the fruit or they feed on things that feed on the fruit. And that they're not eating grain-fed insects or grain-fed rodents. They're all eating shit that eats fucking fruit. And fruit seems to be at the apex of the whole web there. So slowly I started. So there, and there's obviously the water component too, right? They're getting their water from 3 different methods. They're getting their water from puddled water or rivers or whatever they happen to be near. They're getting their water from torrential rain, which happens all the time. And all of these animals have adaptations to take advantage of that. And they're also getting their water from dew, which I kind of lump in the same thing with rain. But I think they're probably all get they all have another method of getting water, and that's through water vapor. It's been proven in chameleons, and I suspect that it's going to be the same thing with the snakes. It has to be the case with the anoles. I've seen plenty of evidence of that.
Like they absorb it, how through their skin or what?
No, they're inhaling it.
Respiration, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I think if I'm not mistaken, I think even we do that to some degree.
Now, so, Ron, one thing I do want to mention, and it's like, I mean, I do my best to try to provide fresh water for them, but I noticed this one female that's been getting bred, she hasn't been moving much, right? And I'm just always curious because I don't ever see her drink. And I now am a pretty advocate at like just spraying the surroundings of the animal, and I don't really spray directly, or try not to. But I just noticed that she has a huge water bowl, probably about 12 inches away from where she's perched, but she just went down and started drinking off the leaves. And I just was like, dude, I mean, go drink at the water. But like, it's crazy how giving them different options on how to drink water, they just have different preferences on how they want to consume water. Sometimes it seems like there was even times where I almost had to put a water dish to a snake's mouth and it just started chugging water. And it was like, holy shit, well, you have fresh water, just go drink it. But
okay, well, I actually have an explanation for that.
All right.
So if you think about it, all reptiles are ectotherms, right? They're totally dependent for their energy needs from external sources. Unlike a mammal that can just decide, oh, I want to go drink, I'm going to walk over there and get a water. Reptiles can't really do that. They basically sit there and wait for an external cue to say, hey, there's fresh water over here. I can go expend that energy and go drink it. It's the same thing with food. You know, they learn over time that when we open the door to the snake room and you're approaching your things, oh, I'm going to get fed, and then they're activated. That's how you explain. I mean, I've seen this before where you put rodents or live feeders in a cage and then it doesn't want to eat at that moment. And then the damn thing is still in there 2 days later. But if you pull it out, put a fresh one in a day later, it'll take it. And it's the same with water bowls. I'm almost positive, and I've seen this with lizards, that if you if you think about it, if you listen to any other podcast, you'll hear people say the same thing. Yeah, I put water bowls in. I change them every 2 or 3 days, but I notice every time I fill them up, they come and drink. It's like a common thing every snake guy says. Well, that's because you triggered them.
Right.
So you told that thing, hey, you can expend the energy to come get this. So that's what that is. Simply changing the water or adding water every day will trigger them in most cases to drink, and that's pretty universal across all.
Yeah, I had just changed the waters. That's why I was frustrated. I was like, I just fucking put fresh water in there, and she just decides to go to a leaf and drink instead.
Well, I mean, again, you had 2 triggers though.
2 triggers, right? That's what I'm saying.
So I found with mine, the reason I went with that 4x4 recently without the basin on the bottom, which it's still set up in a way that I can add those basins whenever I want, is that they weren't really using it. For the most part, they were drinking from the overhead water system. So for them, what I did was I suspended a full overhead sprinkler system 10 feet in the air that shoots straight up. So when I fire it up and it covers I have it over the 2,500 square foot pad and over the area around my garage. So when I fire it straight up, it comes back down like rainwater.
Yeah.
So it takes 15 minutes or so on average for them to start drinking. And then once they start drinking, they do it for about an hour.
Wow.
And I do this every day when I do it every day when it's warm. And then right now obviously it's fucking cold some days. So like today it was cold here, so I couldn't do it. So I don't do it when it's cold. And a lot of that is because this is a new system. So it's basically my anole system ported over, and I've been tinkering with it to get it perfect for the snakes. But I'm worried obviously about things like respiratory and shit like that. But
do you find that they defecate a lot? Is that tied into the misting in the water?
So basically, after I feed them almost to a snake, it takes about 4 days to digest it, and then usually 3 to 4 days later they defecate. So it's been really consistent. I bought right out of the gate. I bought 59 adult imported emeralds and 30 some odd imported adult chondros. Because I wanted to rip. Well, there's a reason for that though. I wanted to rip the Band-Aid off right away.
Right.
Because I didn't want to bring them in 10 at a time, because every time you fucking bring them in, you're risking mites, you're risking all this shit.
Right.
So I figured, okay, I'm going to do the vast majority, the base of the colony all at once. And then when cool shit comes up, I'll bring in 1 or 2 at a time, and it's easy to handle that way and isolate it.
So you did build the foundation right away. Like you wanted just a quick foundation of what you wanted to do.
I mean, if you're doing imports, that's the best way to do it.
Yeah. I agree.
What percentage of those you said you imported 40 something chondros and 50 something adult wild caughts?
It was 59 emeralds, and I'm not sure the number in the chondros. It's 30-ish.
But yeah, a lot. So, and you said that were they adults or babies or?
The chondros were between 32 and 32 inches plus. So
okay,
some
so
of them
good
are breeding right now.
And what percentage of them have survived? Because you always hear all these horror. All of them.
Wow. I lost 3 emeralds, but no chondros. Like I said, dude, I started this out being a full-on emerald guy, and I'm starting to switch over, man.
Welcome to the club, Ron.
No, you hear all these horror stories about adult emeralds and bringing them in, and all the problems that people have with them, and like what a high percentage of them don't end up making it. And it's amazing that you're that's like what 90%, 95%.
3 rolling not at all. That's a good number.
You have to take into account a couple things. One, they're outside. You take imported animals and put them outside in a large enough enclosure with all the stuff they need, and then supply them with it. A lot of it is based on hydration. At this point in the game, I think I've got my hydration game down pretty damn solid. So, and this is not the first time for me. Pretty much everything I've ever developed, going back all the way to the 90s when I developed a lot of the Tegu stuff and the monitor stuff, that was all based on imports, because I wanted to know I had all these diverse bloodlines, and I generally, like I said, like to go after shit that nobody's doing, or at least there are very few people doing them. So,
Ron, what's the process of cleaning those cages? Do you have a pretty simple system?
It's pretty much self-cleaning, right? I mean, it runs the constant rain pretty much sanitizes the whole thing. And then there's no more than 2 animals per enclosure. So you've got, you know, you got large space. The bottoms on the new cages, the bottoms are just wire, so they get annihilated.
Gotcha.
And then even in the basin, you know, the sink drains are pretty big, so everything just flushes right out. The only time I ever have to go in there and do anything is if leaves, you know, pile up in there from using live plants. But
well, you just have like a potted plant in there.
I have a few potted plants in each one, but now I'm going back over and redoing them with. I was basically doing the same thing everybody does. I was using PVC or wooden dowels for perches, and then I had to go get. I ran out of them, and I was sitting on my back porch bitching about having to go to Home Depot and fight traffic and shit. And I realized that I have 5 acres out here, and my whole fucking property is surrounded by grapevine, and it's fucking perfect.
No shit.
So I went out and cut down like 15, 16 foot sections of grapevine and rolled it up into like a mass and then shoved it in the cage. So it expanded and it creates multiple perches of all different sizes. So I did one big ring, and then I put a second ring on the inside, and so I'm going with that method now. And
then where's all the foliage coming from? Because I imagine that provides shade and
right. It's in the back on the ground. I use plants that are between 3 and 4 feet tall. I use this thing called a mass cane. It's a big leaf plant. So if you run the vines through it, they drape over in it, and the chondros and emeralds like to hide underneath that. So it gives them the ability. Plus, everything has a giant cork log. So if they really get super hot, you know, if for some reason they're getting too much sun, they can go in the cork log. And when I see them all disappear in the cork log, then I know, oh shit, I got to move them. So that's kind of how that's worked so far. But like I said, I'm only a year in or so. I mean, it'll be a year soon. I'm not sure exactly when I started this craziness, but so
Ron, I'm interested in like going back to, so you get all these green trees in, so you sex them. I'm assuming you sex them when they came in?
After a few months, yeah.
Okay, and what percentage male female did you get? Pretty even mix.
It was. I mean, we were, I think, 4 over on males.
Okay,
so we had a lot. We had a good run of them. We have a good number that are just like, you know. That's if I did, you know, if I didn't fuck up on any of them. But I did them all like 2 or 3 times. So we have whatever they are, they're all paired up, except for I have 4 additional males. And I was actually thinking about selling those off to a buddy of mine. And then I started looking at them, and they're getting blue all over them. So I was like, no, I think I'll hold on to those.
So are you co-having just pairs? You said there's 2 in each enclosure. You just got a pair in each enclosure. Okay.
Yeah.
And what did you say? What locality did you say these were? Or what?
I have Beox and Arus supposedly, but you know, some people have looked at them and said, "Oh, those are Marukis." You know, you can only go by whatever the fucking importer tells you. But
yeah.
And are you just pairing them accordingly? Just locality specific?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. For now.
Ron, I got a question. The importer that you bought like this big load from, like, pretty trustworthy guy that you know pretty well, or was
I know them all, dude. I get from all of them. So like a lot of them came from underground. Some of my buddy Alex Concepcion is like my back pocket fucking importer, and then I get a lot from Mike Barrera. I know them all. You know, I said.
So I gotta ask on that subject. So when I was a kid, I lived in Tampa for a while too. Yep. And this was back in the, you know, probably late 70s, early 80s maybe. And I had this weird connection through like my grandmother's friend with Joe Fossey. I'm sure you know I'm sure you know him, right?
Yep.
And he's when I was a kid, I remember walking into his he had a shop like a warehouse out by the airport. And my dad would take me all the time, you know, to go look at shit and you know, buy shit. And I saw my first chondros at his house when I was a kid, and a pair of Marukis, and that's what kind of got me hooked. But is he still? I haven't talked to him in years. I saw him at a Daytona or maybe a Tinley a while ago, but it's been, I don't know. Is he still in business, Southeast Reptile Exchange, or not?
As far as I know, yeah. I mean, I never really did much with that dude. I know him, I see him around occasionally and stuff like that. But yeah, he's over in Tampa, and I grew up in Miami, so obviously, I cut my teeth actually in this industry by because I lived within about 5 to 10 miles of 4 large importers at the time. We're talking like late 80s, early 90s. And in 1984, I dropped out of school to do this full time. So I've been doing it a long time. And what I did was I drove around Miami collecting night anoles and brown anoles and supplying the pet trade with them. And I would sell them to those importers. And then I would trade them for shit that I wanted. And at some point around 1988 or 89, maybe, I realized that these guys are getting all this gravid shit from all over the world. So I started grabbing up all the gravid stuff I could, and I took it home and I hatched the eggs or let them have babies, and I learned a lot about how to deal with all these different species. So
what was the industry like being in it that early in the mid 80s?
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. It was
I guess it's mainly importing and just pet selling to pet trade, or okay.
I mean there was I used to supply, like, I used to fish out all these ball python morphs out of shipments and then sell them to Brian Sharp and Kevin McCurley and Greg Graziani. Those guys were all friends of mine. And I was like, I don't want these pet rocks. You guys can have them. In retrospect, I look at that and go, wow, I shot myself in the face on that because I had one of the first caramel albinos. Lindy from Freedom Breeder bought that. I had some of the first ghost balls and a bunch of other shit, solid black ones. I was pulling because I was there at those shipments. So I would buy them for $6, $8, $9 a piece, flip them for $2,000. And I thought, oh, wow, I'm making bank. Because, we're talking like 1992, 93. And
check this shit out.
Yeah.
1986, right? Is that what that says?
I think probably, yeah.
Holy cow.
Dude, Ron was straight metal, bro.
He was.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, the fucking mullet.
I was fucking barely born. My balls were barely dropping then. That's crazy.
Yeah, I was catching caiman. That's actually a small one. I caught a lot of them.
Wow.
Back then, the canals in Homestead were full of them, so I'd go out at night and catch those. And again, I would trade those to these guys for shit that I wanted. Mostly boa constrictors at the time.
So that was something you caught. You caught that in. Oh wow.
Oh, dude, that's little. I caught big ones. Like, I caught one that threw me off its back and almost fucking bit me in front of like 20 people, and it was giant. It was giant. I did a lot of dumb
fucking
shit
amazing.
Yeah, well, I was I grew up my parents didn't have any money, and so I grew up in, like I said, I grew up in Opelika. If you know anything about that, it's a pretty bad neighborhood. And so,
yeah, I was in Miami Lakes for a little while too, which is kind of just south of there. So yeah, I know exactly where it is.
I used to spend a lot of time in Miami Lakes catching night anoles. That was one of my best spots.
Yeah, here's one with the lace monitor. 1991 it says. But like, what was stuff like this? Like, how rare was this stuff back in the day? Like,
that was the only lace monitors I had ever seen up until that point.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Okay.
And how did somebody import those or like?
No, they that pair actually ended up at Frank Reedus's place.
Okay.
They were at Pet Farm. I believe they came from a zoo.
Okay.
And they were big, very violent animals. I mean, dude, I don't know. Maybe they did smuggle them. Everybody. That was during a time when there was a lot of cocaine smuggling and a lot of smuggled animals, and it was just crazy. It was a totally different game back then, especially the characters that ran the reptile industry were.
I'm sorry I missed that.
Yeah.
Yes, that sounds pretty awesome.
Sounds right up my alley.
Yeah.
But I'm curious, so Ron, did money come quick because you started getting your hands on some of this rare shit and meeting people who wanted it? And like, that's how, like, I'm sure you were able to figure shit out pretty quickly and started leveling up as soon as you got your feet got wet into it, right?
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I was lucky. And then I also have been pretty good at seeking out and getting to know people that are doing stuff. Like, I used to call Tracy Barker probably twice a week, and I imagine that she probably hated me for that, because there's this 20-year-old dumbass kid calling her up. Hey, I got some questions about boas and pythons. And and then Philippe de Vaugelet. So I met most of those guys pretty early because I was very serious about this stuff. Like I was totally nerdy kid. That was, I had a huge library. I still do. And I was just all in.
Are you still into Boas, Ron? You still have them and have a passion for them?
Not at the moment. So in like 2000, I'm if you've ever seen a blood boa, that's my thing. Like I'm the originator of that. The Motley boas are mine. I started all those in the early 90s, and I did them for about 12, 13 years. That seems to be about my cycle, where once I master it, then I'm like, okay, I'm done with this. I sell it off and go on to the next thing. This time, this thing has to be the end of that. I'm getting too old for this shit. I need to be able to, I need to find something now and burn.
Well, you're not going to master these. I'll go ahead and tell you now.
We'll see.
Ron's probably been told that before.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
No, I know.
There's a reason why he chose this species to be last as far as what he wants to experiment.
That is true. I mean, I didn't have enough information where I felt like it was even possible. I thought, like I said, I cannot, in the situation that we're in, since we do this for a living, I cannot maintain, 50 or 100 snakes and not have at least 60 to 80% production. So I have to figure that out. If I can't figure this out, then it'll go. But it was very similar with the anoles in the past. Like I said, the production rate on those, it was thought they only lay 6 eggs a year, and it was accepted that the first ones are always infertile. I've completely torpedoed that. I get on average about 30 eggs a year out of a female. And then I've completely gotten rid of the initial infertility. That was totally related to water. It's just, I think the reason that we kind of sit in one spot for a while is because I think all of us put way too much importance on the other people that came before you, the past. We take what we hear, what we read, and then it becomes a belief, and then you kind of stop looking. You know what I'm saying? So you just assume that what you've heard from all these other people is correct. But I don't believe that's the case. I think it requires deconstruction, which that's what I do. I tear it all apart. I look at what I think is logical. I listen to what everybody says and read every piece of literature. I've watched all these podcasts. Even I've watched most of the ones you three have been on. And I watch all of them, and I take it all in, and then I start cutting it apart and say, okay, am I seeing this here? And I'm not just talking about with these snakes, I'm just with everything in general. So at this point, it's worked. I'm sorry,
Ron,
go ahead.
I was going to ask you, I know this may be a fluid answer, but just sitting where you are right now, what are you looking time-wise? You're saying, I want to see if this works. It's like, what kind of time frame are you giving yourself to say that, yes, it is or it's not?
Well, typically when I start something like this, it's about 4 years before the machine starts to show whether it's working or not. So we're on year 1. I think we're going to actually get some production out of some of these chondros because they're swelling up. They were breeding. I don't know yet. I'm trying not to get, overly invested in this whole thing. The emeralds, I don't expect anything out of them. When you're trying to get imports, I usually figure 2 years is about what it takes to get them established. So I did an ass load of imports at once, which is maddening. Trust me, I battled every fucking thing you can imagine with them already. I had the mite problem and then all this other shit. And mites outdoors, a whole different game. So I had to use parasitic mites to kill them off, which has worked. Not parasitic mites, but predatory mites.
Predatory mites, yeah.
So the predatory mites work good for me. I don't know how that would work inside, but
I've heard very mixed reviews about predatory mites.
Yeah. I think indoors, if you probably have sprayed in the past or it's too dry, there's probably a lot of things that can fuck them up. But in these enclosures, they just live in the pots.
Yeah.
So did all these wild caught northern emeralds, they all fed for you, and they're all but two. And how are you feeding them live, frozen thawed?
Yeah, live. Some eat frozen thawed, but I'm actually working on something on that I may understand what causes chronic regurgitation syndrome.
What causes it?
Accidentally figured it out. We'll see. I can actually trigger them to puke and stop it. And it seems to be related to so a long time ago when I started this, Heather was like, Heather Moy, who's, you know, my girlfriend and partner and all this shit. She does all the lizards, most of them anyway. And I do the snakes and the anoles. But she said, you know, a lot of this stuff sounds like a lot of the gut problems you see in humans and that you hear about in other things related to wheat and grain. So I started looking into that, and I solved it in the anoles accidentally. And that one of the things I did was remove grain-fed insects. I wasn't thinking about that at the time. I was looking for, you know, just a better way. You know, I knew they fed on a lot of fruit in the wild directly, and they fed on these. So I switched them to an almost complete.
Oh, the anoles eat fruit also? They're not strictly insect eaters? Okay, no. I didn't know that.
So they feed mostly on fruit. They'll also eat other smaller anoles. So they're like those trees are sort of tiered, right? You got those things, the giant anoles, they're at the very top. They're the crown giants. Then underneath them is like a smaller anole. Then underneath them is another smaller anole. Well, the big ones feed on everybody. And then they also they'll gorge themselves on the fruit, whatever fruit's available. And yeah, that's the baby anole rearing area. But so they'll gorge themselves on fruit when they have it. But I accidentally took them off all the grain-fed insects and just put them on hornworms and fruit. And every single fucking problem that they had went away. So then I went back and started really looking at that. At the time, like I said, I didn't draw it together, but Heather really kind of put it together. So then I had 18 of those emeralds puke, regurged.
18 of them puked?
18 of them at one time. So then I go back and I feed them a couple weeks. I hydrate the shit out of them, feed them a couple weeks again, fucking puke again.
Yeah.
Then I hydrated them back, gave them 4 weeks this time, fed them. They fucking vomited again. Well, by this time, I'm fucking super depressed.
Yeah.
And thinking, oh shit, this whole thing's coming unraveled. You know, it's all going to fall apart.
Yeah.
And so I get my live rats on Friday. But at this point, normally I get my rats in and I feed them right away. I feed everybody off. But I didn't do that. Instead, I threw them in this fucking rat rack that I have. And then on Monday, I finally got around to feeding them off. Now, they had no grains to eat, and they were just eating some banana that I had put in there because I didn't have any rat food here, because I normally don't have to feed them because I get rid of them right away. And son of a bitch.
Because who wants to take care of a bunch of rats?
Exactly.
Anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
So I fucking feed them, and none of them fucking regurge. And I was like, what the fuck? So I tried it again 2 weeks later, and none of them regurged. And I did it a third time, and none of them regurged.
So you kept getting rats and just fed them fruit?
Yes, I drained. What I was doing was emptying them out. So and I was adding obviously enough, giving them fruits and seeds to keep them alive, but not
grain, not
grain.
Yeah.
So then I got a load in of rats, and I just took them straight, immediately fed them off, and they all fucking puked again. I think, and this was Heather's theory, and I think she's dead on right, that emerald tree boas, because of where they live, they feed predominantly on the spiny rat, and the spiny rat is not a grain-fed rodent. It eats fucking fruit and seeds. That's what it eats. There are no real grains for anything to eat in the tropics. Where the anoles come from, those insects they feed on also primarily feed on fruit and leaves and shit like that. They're not fucking eating bran and grains and stuff. And either it's chemicals in those things, or it's just simply the grains themselves, that if you get an animal that's super sensitive, maybe they're all sensitive, but maybe some of them are at least more, just like people. Like some people have Crohn's disease and some people don't. Some people can eat all the shit in the world and they got an iron stomach, but some of us, you eat something and it'll fuck you
Ron,
all.
you're saying the ones that do make it through like quarantine of being fed rats that have grain in them are just a stronger stomach emeralds that can handle it, and there's ones that just can't.
Yeah, or maybe some of them, maybe your supplier, maybe they're not as loaded up for whoever you're getting your rats from. There's all kind of things that could explain why there's some inconsistencies. But so far I've been able to trigger and untrigger it, and I'm continuing to experiment with it. Like I said, I could be totally fucking wrong, but if you think about it, it does make a lot of sense. And animals that are totally so one of the things to bear in mind is that everything that's from the tropics, there are no real herpetocultural success stories. But if you think about all the things that, like, if you go to a show, you're going to fucking see it for the most part. It's almost always animals that live in a drier habitat where they're eating grain-fed animals, like the shit we produce in captivity, rats, crickets, mealworms, all that stuff. Those are the real success stories. There are a few outliers, like, yes, you can say, okay, well, what about crested geckos? But they formulated diets for those that are essentially fruit diets in powdered form. That's what everybody feeds them.
Ron, we don't typically see that problem as much in imported green trees. At least the regurge. And they're feeding on...
I'm sorry, go ahead. No.
Well, I was going to say that they're feeding on rodents, in Indo and New Guinea and stuff. So
for sure. But they have a bigger range, and chondros seem to be ranged into little drier habitats, and they eat a lot different things, right? The emerald tree boa, though, it seems like the people that I've talked to and the stuff that I've read seems like they eat almost to exclusion the spiny rat. So whereas the chondros probably are hardwired to feed on a variety of things. And so for them, they don't give a fuck about it.
Yeah, I got a question, Ron, because it's standing out to me right now how one of the things that I feel like people avoid when they first get a big emerald in is they keep them on like mice or feed them mice because they're like, well, they just think a rat's too much. But why wouldn't a mice make a chondro or an emerald puke?
I think that's also explains why you can't feed them larger meals. Larger meals are going to have more in their gut. So if it is that, if you're giving them a smaller dose of whatever is toxic to them, they're probably going to hold it down better. It's less of it. They're getting less. But because I didn't see a problem, I went through all summer with no fucking regurges until I upped the rat size. Yeah. As soon as I upped the rat size, it happened.
So I have over 14 emeralds and I don't have any regurges, and they all eat rats, like big motherfuckers.
Yeah, and like I said, dude,
it's got to be that could be a captive bred thing, though. No,
half mine are imports. What do you mean?
Real?
So
yeah, this whole wall right here is imports.
So that is one thing. Not a single I have 18 captive bred ones. Not a goddamn one of them has puked.
Yeah, captive and my captive breds are more solid than ever. Yeah, but
the fact that I can trigger and fix is there's something there. Like it's not. I don't think it's.
And that's 100% of the time. It happens with all of them. To all 18 of them.
Yeah.
If our friend Bruce were here, he would want you to do a study. Come on, Ron.
That's not going to happen. But what I am going to do is I am going to keep fucking with this until I see if it ends up being the case. So what I'm basically doing is I'm bringing in a bunch of ASFs and I'm going to raise them myself. I have a fucking rat rack that I didn't want to use, but I'm going to roll it out. I'm going to breed my own, raise them on fruit and fucking seeds and see.
Don't do it. Don't do it. No, I'm just kidding.
Marshall.
I'm with you, man. I used to do it a long time ago. I fucking hate it. Worst shit ever.
Ron, the thing I want to know the most, going forward with what you are talking about here is the fact that you're saying every time I feed them a rat that's not on grain and they're on fruit, it doesn't regurge. I want to see if you could do that for a year with no regurge.
That's what I'm.
And if you could do that, then I'm a believer of it. But one thing I've come to know that once, like especially back-to-back regurges, but once you get an emerald to regurge, there's no going back from that. That thing will always gonna fucking regurge. But mind you, I've never even thought, well, let me feed this rat some fruit and empty it out. Like, so I can't say.
No, why I can't. I did stop it. It stops as long as I don't feed him, a fresh fed. Now maybe it's something See, that's the thing. That there's I'm probably never going to have a direct answer to this, other than, you know, you can stop it if you do a certain thing, you know, because maybe it's dependent on who you get your rats from. You know, maybe they're feeding it something that's causing it.
I mean, everybody that breeds rats, though, pretty much feeds them one of 4 or 5 different, you know, lab block, call it Missouri or Comblotch or whatever.
Like I said, man, I don't know. It's just, there's the fact that it's controllable by just emptying that out. How does that work exactly? Now, maybe when you empty them out, they don't weigh as much, and so maybe it's the size that's.
I mean, the interesting thing to me is that it's 100% every time, and you can do it. You know, that seems to be the trigger with all. 18 is a pretty large sample size for that, I think.
That's a big number, and like I said, for you to have all 18 not regurg after 4 times of regurging, that's like I've never heard of that. Like, I mean,
I think
we're potentially saving a lot of emeralds from hitting the freezer.
So I think there's a couple things that people do if you think about it. Like the first time people get a regurg, everybody panics. I fucking panicked. So you go into full panic. Then you immediately want to do it again to see, it'll hold the next meal down. So if it is some sort of, you know, gut irritation, let's just say that's what it is. Let's just say that the grain that's in their stomach may cause some sort of inflammation in their gut. Well, if you chase that down to,
like you're just saying, the undigested food that they have in them.
Yeah, what's still sitting there.
Well, not only that, but I mean, if they eat something and it does cause them inflammation, and then, you know, who knows how long that'll last afterwards, after they puke. Maybe they stay inflamed for a while. And so then you get them up, you chase them down with a second one. Now you've made it worse because you're doubling down on the inflammation, and then you keep going. I think that's how this works. And then you keep doing it because you're not changing really anything. You're just continuing to do the same thing, and eventually they fucking die. So, and honestly, if you think about it, the logical response would be to give them more, you know, bigger or at least more fresher rodents that are more gut loaded, because you're trying to make up for what happened on the last round, which I don't know. Like I said, it's right now, I could be totally fucking wrong. Everything I said, no one should take anything I say as anything else than I'm just throwing shit out right now that I've
seen. Other than anecdotal. You got to get that word. You got to get that word in.
Right. Yeah. No, for sure. Everything's anecdotal.
Thanks for not acting like a CEO with the white coat on, though. I appreciate that. I mean, at least you're fucking saying. At least you're like saying, listen, whatever the fuck I'm doing is for me. I'm trying this out.
Right. That's exactly what it is. Yeah. That's it. You're not going to see me posting fucking stupid memes about you should do this or fuck that. I ain't that fucking guy. But no, it's this is all just, this is something I always wanted to do, and I'm lucky that the lizards back up back us up financially, so I can go and fuck around with this for a while and see if it works. So, and like I said, I'm not following anybody's formula at all. I took the parts I think that matter, and then I converted to my own thing, and then, but this is how I've done everything. Mind you, in the 90s, more than one motherfucker told me you can't breed tegus in captivity. And then 12 years later, I had 250 of them, and I was cranking them out.
Right.
So, and produced the first albinos and all this fucking shit. So, you know, ball pythons used to be unbreedable. Like,
that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. You could, they can't be bred in captivity. They don't eat. They have all these problems. And now look at them. But that's because an entire industry got together and formulated, you know, the perfect system for them. And now we have that. So even if some people don't like the rack, the fact is that rack for that snake is fucking perfect. Like, it ticks all the boxes that it needs. Yeah. Otherwise you wouldn't be able to, you wouldn't have to endure, you know, miles of them at a reptile show. You know what I'm saying?
That's right. I mean, yeah. 100%.
Hey, I got a question for you, Ron. You know, one of the multiple levels of freaking out when you smell regurg, especially for like the first time, it's like, oh my God, you'll never forget that smell, right?
Yeah.
But like, obviously by getting information and talking about it, you find out, wow, there's kind of multiple ways of this regurgitation scenario that could happen. And what I mean by that, you could have a regurg from a snake from an emerald that, just like you said, the rat just didn't process right and it pukes, right? But then there's also a type of regurgitation that spreads, meaning like anything next to this fucking snake could get this regurgitation too. And it's called crypto. So are you doing any kind of like panel testing or anything on these snakes just to ensure like it's not like just this rat dieting thing that we're talking about? Like it's not a deeper issue than that? Have you done any kind of testing?
No. And I can tell you two things. One, I've got animals on the same cart that don't regurg, and I've never regurged, but other ones do. Second, with regards to crypto, and I'm pretty sure that any zoo guy can tell you this, when they test and try to bring shit in, they find crypto in every fucking thing. And I know for a fact that the entire industry is completely full of it. And it's not a fucking, here's the thing. People freak out when they hear that, but it's really not a problem. If you have a crypto outbreak, it's generally because you fucked up on your husbandry somewhere and a bomb went off. That's really how it works. You will never avoid it, ever. It's not going to happen. The only way you could potentially avoid it is to test the shit out of your collection, which I guarantee all of us have it. And then you better never fucking bring anything in again. You better not go to shows. You're pretty much locked. You have to lock yourself in a bubble because it is industry-wide, pervasive, and it's not going away.
Right.
So there's nothing you can do about it. So I don't even bother to worry about it anymore. If I see a problem, if anything is, not working the way I think it's going to, it just stays here. And if it dies, it dies. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. But in 39 years, and I mean this when I say this, I have never had an outbreak of anything that fucking wiped out a collection. And I have the same set of protocols. So part of the way you can keep it down, and mind you, now I've done north of 100 species on some kind of commercial level. And that's everything from frogs to different snakes and a lot of touchy shit. And I think one thing that works in my favor that might not work for everyone is that I have UV sterilization because there's a big fucking glowing ball in the sky that sterilizes everything for you. So that works to your advantage. The other thing is fresh air. Obviously if you're up north, you're kind of fucked because you have to have warm rooms, heated rooms. It's hard to get fresh air in there. I mean, I'm sure now you could probably buy stuff to, air cleaners and stuff. But so I think those things, if I had to go indoors, I'd be using UVs on everything and like ionizers and shit for the air just to try. I don't even know if that does any good, to be perfectly honest, but I would try to mimic as close to outside as I could if I have to go in. And I may. Heather and I have talked about moving to a northern state. So at some point, I may have to go in a basement or something.
Wow.
Outside just sounds like it's like a totally different ball game as far as it just seems like it's a lot easier if you have a good spot to do it.
Just seems worth it too, though. It seems like if you get it down, it's worth it.
All right. But okay. So some parts of it are easier for sure. But some parts of it are incredibly difficult. You have to fucking react to the environment. Everything out there is completely at the whims of. So it's kind of like one of the things where. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, every day's different, right? I mean, every day's different.
You rely on Mother Nature.
Yeah, it probably took me 10 or 12 years before I got confident that I could. Deal with it. And then every time, and I moved 5 times since then, every time I fucking move though, even if I move 20, 30 miles, it totally resets the whole damn thing.
I'm sure.
Like right now we live in, one of the things I have going for us here with regards to the Chondros and the emeralds is that we live on like this kind of an isthmus kind of thing between 2 fucking lakes. Right. And one of them's really big. And so the air humidity that is output by those is extremely uncomfortable for a human, but the fucking snakes love that shit.
Love it.
Yeah. So we have that going on. We have, the weather in Orlando is fairly mild most of the time, 90s. So, and then, 70s at night. So it's in a good range for those snakes most of the year.
For sure it is.
Sounds like you've got a great setup too, with everything on casters and a slab to roll it around on, and that makes it
Yeah.
makes your day to day and your maintenance and stuff like that a lot easier.
Yeah, I would have had to do. I would have done something different if we didn't have that building and that slab. So
Was that purpose built for the snakes, or did you find that property with the building already on it?
No, I have an old friend of mine that's kind of an investor in what we do, named Scott Saunders, and he found this place. He called me up one day. Heather and I were working out of a dark ass warehouse for a while, and he's like, "Dude, I found the fucking house. It was formerly like a mechanic lived here, and it was his shop. So it's this big building with 4 bay doors, and it's got a really high ceiling, and it's got an office in it and another extra room, and then the house has a 2.5 car garage attached to it and a porch that runs the entire length of the house. So I've got all these zones. And then when we found those carts, this fucking dude was selling these old Home Depot carts out of a warehouse and and we bought them for like $100 a piece. So we bought 30.
And you have neighbors that know what's going on, or what?
What are some of these police questions, Marshall?
Marshall,
No.
I mean, I just gotta ask. These are the things I worry about.
It's Florida, for God's sakes.
Oh, wait,
No.
do you know what your neighbor voted for?
Here's
or
the funniest part of that. My next door neighbor on the left side, turns out that he's this legendary fucking turtle breeder named Dennis Uhrig. I had no idea that dude lived there. And we didn't. Even funnier, the only reason that I lived here for a year before we met. And we only met because the neighbor on the right side of me is a fucking prick that used a drone to fly over my house and his and called animal control on us.
That's what I'd be worried about. That's exactly what I'd be worried about.
Animal control showed up, and I let her in, and I gave her the full tour. And when she left, she gave us a glowing fucking review, because we're totally fucking paranoid about shit getting loose or getting tickets from FWC. So we go way, way above what some people might do. So this place is fucking on the money all the time with regards to that.
It's locked down.
Well, then she tried to go over to Urig's place, and he's less amenable. So he met her at the gate and told her to get the fuck out. but Dennis was pissed. So he used freedom of information to see who fucking turned us in. And he pulls into my driveway and he goes, "I just found out you're a reptile guy. I talked to a couple friends, mutual friends we had, and they were like, 'Do you know that's Ron St.Pierre next door?' And then my friends were coming to me telling me, 'You know that's Dennis Uhrig that lives next door?'"
Wow.
So we got this weird fucking thing going on now where we both have these huge kind of operations right next to each other. But Dennis was like,
"That's pretty awesome.
Cocksucker next door to you fucking is the one who ratted us out, and he's a fucking prick." And so we became friends, and
that's a good way to become friends.
It was weird, man.
Tell that guy to move back to Alabama, where he belongs.
Yeah,
poor Marshall.
Senator Marshall's block.
Yeah.
Dude, that's crazy. Now, I'm thinking though, Ron, like, let's just say you kind of get some success, which I hope you do, right? But let's just say some of these clutches start dropping with the green trees. What's your game plan? Are you going to maternal incubate, or are you going to put them in an incubator? What's your game plan behind getting these clutches?
I mean, I have big incubators, but honestly, I was actually talking to Vin Russo this weekend about it. In the past,
oh boy, here we go.
I did a bunch of. I have a lot of experience with pythons. I bred a bunch of different ones back in the
Be right back.
And so I always did maternal incubation with them. I'm going to attempt it with these this time. If it sucks, then I'll go back to then I'll put them in an incubator. But I kind of like the idea of that better. It's just less shit for me to deal with. And I hate incubators. I fucking hate them. Right. One year I had an incubator malfunction that cooked almost an entire year's worth of lizards that we would have produced. Like 1,400 eggs got fucking fried. And ever since then, we basically, our incubators, we use a whole room incubator that's we don't keep any stable temperatures. I I know they're mostly safe. I mean, but man, you have one fuck up
You bring up a good point. You are literally putting all of your eggs in one
in
basket.
one basket. Yep.
You are.
Yep.
Yep.
I'll say that some of the technology, monitoring technology, has gotten a lot better. Now that can prevent really a lot of that. All the apps send your cell phone when the temp drops or increases a degree. A lot of stuff now. Probably could prevent. I don't know when your big disaster happened, but
that was like 12 years ago. Yeah, we didn't have that shit then, and ever since then, I've just been like super paranoid about that. And I realize it's irrational. I shouldn't be, but
I don't think it's that irrational.
So Ron,
fear of what? Sorry.
Hey guys, can I have 1 minute? I'll be right back.
Yeah. I'll fill Mark in.
Hey, Ron, I'm sorry for my friend Marshall, by the way. Fuck.
He's probably going to lock down the house, and
he's gonna make sure. He heard a drone.
Marshall, Ron was just saying, he had one catastrophic year where he had an incubator failure and he lost really an entire year of production.
Oh,
talking about having all your eggs in one basket, and he said. Well, he was just saying he thought that sounded irrational, but it's really not irrational. I worry about it all the time, and I feel like I've got a lot of backup systems in place, but I still worry.
Yeah,
about it.
Same. It could happen so fast and so easily.
Hey, so Ron said he has a whole room. Then, right? That's what he uses, a whole room for an incubator.
Yeah, that's what we can ask him about it when he comes back, but yeah, I think that's what he was alluding to. And when you have that big of a space, you have a lot more leeway.
Things happen slower. Yeah.
Things happen slower. It's just like an aquarium,
Right. Hey, Ron, can you confirm, you say that if you do incubate something, it's in a whole room that you have temps cooking and whatnot, right?
It's just like right now we're doing it in our garage because our garage is staying at the right temperatures. And then during the rest of the year, we might incubate in another room. It just depends. We have multiple rooms that we can use.
This is for the lizards. So, and you only do the one species of lizard, the blue anoles?
Oh God, no.
Okay.
We have pretty much most of the available blue tongue skink morphs in the United States. We've got we produce tons of skinks. We have banana pectinata spiny tails. We produce a bunch of bearded dragons, a bunch of frilled dragons, and dude, honestly, there's so much shit here. I don't know. A couple different anole species.
I love that.
That's awesome.
Border. Yeah, I mean, we're on 5 acres, and we probably have an acre and a half covered. I think by now. It's a lot of shit.
Do you have employees?
No, it's me and
Oh wow,
but
that's amazing.
Outdoors, you can get away with that, man. You don't have to clean anything. It's all
that's true. Yeah,
big enclosures, and it's shit, man. Even the fucking blue tongues, we hardly have to feed them because out of some weird thing, when I set up their system, I created the perfect habitat for these giant native ground roaches, and the fucking ground roaches invaded the blue tongue enclosures and they gorge themselves on the damn things.
That's amazing.
So they're getting all this wild food. So it's been really good. Not to
you
mention
get those big roaches down there too in Florida.
Yeah.
Palmetto bugs.
Yep.
So
that worked out.
What's the best thing going for you right now as far as like anything you're producing and selling? Like what are you standing the strongest on?
Well, this year, we're going to produce a lot. I shouldn't say that. We just paired up more blue tongues than we've ever, and some of them are like het albinos, which as far as I know have not been produced in the United States yet. People have brought in albinos, but most people couldn't get them to go, and we finally got 2 to go. So last year, so we were able to hold back 21 hets, and the hets are breeding now. And then we have the hypermels and all that. We're already working on making combos. We have a morph of blue tongue that we proved out that belongs just to us last year, and we have a bunch of stuff. So that's probably our biggest thing right now are the blue tongues. And Heather's really been pushing hard with that, and she's made huge strides. But again, we don't do them like everybody else. We have them in pairs together year round outside big enclosures. So, it's just.
I would have no idea what would be like a big year of blue tongue skink production. What kind of numbers are you talking about?
I mean, depending on what goes, we could probably have up to 400 maybe of a variety of species, of a variety of morphs and combos and species. So
it's a lot.
Yeah, I mean, and they're all like high end stuff. There's no like, so it's all good stuff. What were you gonna say, MJ?
I was gonna say, how do you feel overall with the market right now and producing like kind of stuff that's just not really out there? Do you feel like you guys will do well overall with sales? Even though not too many people are spending too much money right now.
Well, I can say this: when we went to Tinley this weekend, I leading up to that, everybody's been all doom and gloom and shit. So I expected to go into this place and not do well.
Right.
And we went up there and had probably our 5th best show ever.
Fantastic.
Fuck yeah.
But again, we don't really have much competition for most of the stuff we do.
That's what it's all about.
Yeah, we're doing all these giant anoles. I'm the only one there with them for the most part.
Damn, that's what you took, huh? Bunch of anoles?
I sold a bunch of anoles. We sold Australian water dragons. We sold banana pectinata, all this stuff.
Dude, yes.
We just don't have, that's kind of where we always stay. I don't like I'm just not going to go do I did. So I take that back. We were quietly producing the Axanthic crested gecko, that new morph, but we didn't even sell them to the public. They all went to China. And then once we had to sell them in America, I just farmed it out to a friend of mine and said, here, take all these fucking things and give us half the money and just sell them. Because
that's nice.
The retail on that kind of stuff, man, you got to sift through all these
tire kickers.
Yeah.
Especially the fat ones.
We just don't have time. If there's only 2 people, we have no employees. So we generally tend to be, most of the best shit we produce here, people that come here buy the shit, friends of ours and stuff. Or
that's just as time consuming as the actual working with the animals is marketing them and trying to selling them,
No doubt.
that's half the work.
Yeah, for sure. That's why we like to do those big shows. We do Daytona and the 2 Tinleys, and that gives us our retail outlet. We wholesale a lot of stuff to, like I said, friends of ours, dealers and stuff. And
right.
So we do a little bit of everything. We're not we're somewhere in the line between a hobbyist breeder and a professional breeder. We're not really like a lot of the really professional breeders have giant operations and 50 employees.
Right.
It's like you're professional, but you want to have fun. Like you're just like, you're trying to you're riding that line where like I could do it all, but also don't want to overdo it. I want to keep it where it's at.
Well, and a big part of it is that both her and I, we kind of have the same.
That's huge. That's a huge part. I mean, look at the Barcheks, the Barkers. The people who have been extremely successful like that and not had to have big overhead expenses. It's because both partners are really into it.
Yep, for sure. She's every bit as hardcore as any of us on this stuff. So, and she catches a lot of shit that I don't catch. Like I'll be fucking focused on something, trying to figure it out. She'll walk by and just matter of factly say, "Hey, what about this?" And I'm just like, "What the fuck?" Yeah,
a whole other set of eyes changes everything. That's like fuck.
Totally. Because she comes at it from a different perspective, and I'm not very observant. She's like hyper observant, so she'll catch shit that would just go right over my head. So
Bill has an Alex Warren, so he's good.
Yeah, but Alex is neither of those. He's neither hyper observant or hypo observant. He's just I don't know what he does really. I can say that because he's already logged off. So,
hey, I want to ask you something though, Ron, because we keep skipping it, not on purpose, but you have some really unique looking emeralds from what you posted, like this high yellow looking one, and how I'm just curious, was this one that is doing well for you? Has it been well established, or is it kind of one that's been kicking you in the balls? Like
the Notochondro? No, that thing's doing well.
Yeah.
I haven't posted any photos of it lately. I need to get back on it and get pictures.
Male or female that you know?
It's a female.
Fuck, that thing's awesome.
It was supposed to be a male, but yeah.
Do you know where these all came from? As far as like what are they like? Where were they exported from? Are they?
Oh, we imported that from
sure.
Suriname.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah. Almost all the ones I have are from Suriname. My guys that I usually use to get stuff, that's their primary. We have that one. We have one that is mostly yellow that we haven't shown. I don't know what the fuck that thing is yet. It's going through. I don't know. I don't know what it is. And then we got one. We have a bunch of patternless ones, a bunch of anaconda phase.
Right.
One that was green and now has yellow really creeping up its sides. It reminds me almost of a white side. So those were special animals that we bought. We paid some of those. We paid stupid money for to get them, but so yeah, that's why I decided to really focus on northerns. I initially bought 4 basins and then I sold 3 of them off to a friend of mine. I still have one here. I'm probably going to sell that and just focus on northerns.
Wow.
And
why is that though, Ron? I'm just curious.
Oh, just because I'm keeping the emeralds in my 2-car garage. So I only have so much space in there and I don't want to overcrowd it. I will definitely get to basins at some point. If this works out, I figure I'll be able to fucking, trade or buy for more later. And then I'll just pick up some more basins. They're around every once in a while. So it's not like, it's not super.
It's just a matter of time before these are the ones that are going to be more desirable or as desirable.
Yeah, I hope so.
Think so. I do think so. I think the fact that
they're so overlooked.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's always been that's what I did with those anoles, man. Nobody gave a fucking shit about those anoles until I started producing albinos and putting them out there. And then people saw, I get this 22-inch, canary yellow lizard with red eyes. And that took off. And then I was in the process of producing about 10 morphs of those. And I had just fired up the machine at that point. It was going to really start cranking out. And then I completed the cycle with them and realized, oh shit, I can port this over to these snakes that I actually really want to do. Like that was, like I said, one of the first things that really got me was the Living Snakes of the World book by Mertens. It has the fucking big emerald on the front. And there was a bunch of shit like that. When I was a kid, I would always look at them or see them in the shops and go, man, I really want those. But everybody says they die. And even when I went to do this, every importer friend that I contacted to do this was like, dude, don't do it. It's going to blow up in your face. And I was like, nah, I think this will work. I mean, I've established.
It's like Marshall. Don't do the ASFs, man. Don't do it.
They're illegal here. My neighbors have drones, and I've copped to be here in a minute. So.
Hey, but Ron, with all due respect, your situation is just a lot different because you avoided dabbling with these species because of all these reasons, and now you have done enough waiting around and enough listening to where I feel like no matter who tells you what, you're willing to fucking swing at the fence for this shit. It looks like.
I mean, I do that with everything. If you don't take risks, you're never going to get any fucking reward. And so, yeah, it's a big risk relatively, but it is, like I said, it is hedged against things. And a lot of the shit that I've done in the past, they weren't easy species. They didn't have like the iconic, that's a fucking chondro thing, but they were little shit that I would dick around with for 8 or 10 years. And then once I got the machine fired up, then it worked, but it takes a while.
I think you did it the right way for sure by doing it, all kind of in mass. And like you said, not piecemealing 2, 3, 5 animals here, 10 animals here. You decided the size of the project that was going to work for you and you did it. The only thing that comes to my mind is, you talked about moving is your enemy. You've made several moves and I could just, chirp in a little bit there. It's really the enemy with green trees.
Oh yeah. I have no doubt.
I can only speak of those that are captive bred. I'm not even talking about moving imports.
Yep. I know.
But that's
I've heard all the stories, man, and every time
I moved 2 minutes
somebody-
away into this new place, and it's been 3 years, and it's just now starting to get back, get back right.
Yeah, I mean, I know quite a few people that have just had collections that were stable and beautiful, and then they moved, and the whole fucking thing blew up in their face.
Yep.
And I mean, but I mean that honestly, that happens with a lot of this shit. Like you move big monitors, and they'll just fucking crash and burn a lot of time. You're looking at like, what the fuck happened? It was perfect. Right. It was fine. It was eating. It was fat, healthy, and it's just fucking dead. Yeah. So that's a thing with crocodilians too. There's just something about I guess the stress, of going to a new place. So I honestly don't plan on leaving here for a while. Hopefully it'll be, 8 or 10 years before we have to move, if ever. But
the machine will be in full effect by then. You'll know in 8 years. I mean, it could be a monster by then.
Yeah, it could be.
We're either gonna have a lot more podcasts on here talking about your success, or maybe a couple more, and you're gonna be pissed off.
No, I'm good. I mean, I've always talked about I find personally, when I hear people talking about their failures, far more valuable than
Dude, it's awesome
than the successes, right? Because then you learn, at least in my, like, hey man, I had a spectacular failure with the fucking tegus, and I was always very open about it. You guys probably don't know about it, but in lizard circles, they know. I fucked up. I basically was offered a SKU for like one of the big box stores if I could produce X amount a year, and it was like a stable income. So I tried to do it, and I ended up losing my house. So the whole fucking thing imploded, and I took 2 years off from everything, and I just fucking sat in a mobile home on a piece of property and did nothing but play video games while I figured out how the fuck I was going to move forward.
Wow.
I fired it back up in like 2004. But yeah, it was bad. I put all my eggs in one basket. I was killing it with tegus when I had 50 of them. Right? I was cranking them out. I was selling them retail. People were buying them. I was making good money. And then I tried to do this. So I set up 250 of them. And turns out 250 tegus is very expensive to feed. And then you start going backwards on that. And then you start, your care starts to go down. So by the time I was able to stop everything, it was at the point where I called up the importers that I knew, the wholesalers, and said, drive your ass up here, bring bags, give me $100 a piece, go pick your own stuff. I didn't even look what they were putting in the bags. So a bunch of them got adult albinos for $100, like a whole bunch of them. I just did not give a fuck.
Wow. That burnt out.
So I learned a lot from that, though. Don't fucking bite off more than you can chew. It's not fucking worth it trying to produce for these big box. That's when I realized I wasn't cut out to do this on a professional level. I'm somewhere, like I said, somewhere in between a hobbyist and a professional breeder. I do it for a living. We do it on like a large hobbyist level.
And Ron, what's crazy now, there's a lot of examples like you just said on why people won't do that fucking that kind of move. But but the respect for you, who else was really doing it then? Like you kind of
there was nobody.
You had to bet on yourself, and you're that type of person. Obviously, look what you're doing with the emeralds and chondros. So I mean, not all swings are going to be hits, right? So it's
no. Yeah,
that's a big
no. Yeah, for sure. I've missed quite a few times. But
name of the game, bro.
That's the game, man. Yeah, for sure.
You got to keep swinging, but also too, like you got to learn from your fuck ups, right? If you know something just isn't cut out for you, you find something else that is. And there's so many, like the animal world, you could create your position. You can create a position in almost anything in this fucking game in the reptile world, right?
Yeah, for sure.
You got to find out what it is that suits you best, and I feel like you've always kept it in the zone where you have something that you are happy producing, but also not something that overwhelms you to the fact where you're ready to fucking just call it quits,
Correct. Yeah. As soon as I will generally do a staggered increase until I start feeling burnout. And then once I start feeling burnout, then I take it back a little bit. And it normally for us seems to sit between 10 and 30 pairs of a given project. Now we had more than that with blue tongues.
Wow.
But that's because honestly, the way we have them set up, they're just so easy.
Right.
Like there's not much to do with them. You just basically you feed them, you water them, and you collect babies. No eggs to deal with. Once a year, Heather goes out there and I'll hear her out there screaming, "Babies are born!" And then she grabs her bucket and goes running around, looks through the cages and finds them. And then, you'll find fucking sometimes there's 20 fucking big ass babies in a single enclosure. And depending on what it is, sometimes it's really cool shit.
Yeah, I bet.
So it's fun.
No, Ron, the idea of keeping stuff outside does sound luxurious, and it sounds like, wow, what the best thing to do for an animal is if you can mimic something outside your home, and that's the best thing for that, right? But I panic on people fucking coming on my property when I'm at home and maybe jacking some shit. Like, are you ever worried about, security or anything like that?
I have a lot of security. Yeah, I have a lot of unique security. It's not just bullshit cameras and alarms. So
are you also very careful with who comes over to your house too?
Yeah, I mean, if I know you and if you have a reputation in the industry, we're small. We all have. It's easy to vet somebody.
That's true.
And then I have regular people, but when we go to Tinley, my house is full, and there are people coming in and out all the time.
Got it.
So this fucking place is never left on, and I'm home most of the time. And this is kind of a fuck the dog, beware of an owner kind of place. So,
I get it. I'm reading between the lines here.
But I've never had a problem. And like I said, I think most people, are cool. I mean, yeah, you could run into a problem. But honestly, how different is it from keeping it inside? I mean, if they want your shit, they're just going to break your fucking door down anyway.
That's true too.
And
then
so there's not really much difference, but there are things you can do outside of what everybody else does that thwart fucking thieves. And we do all of those things.
Right.
I'm super sketch about bringing people I don't know, letting people I don't know come over to the house. I always at least have to go meet them once or something,
Yeah. I mean, like I said, they have to be an industry person of some sort, like if you guys came here, the door would be open, because I either know of you or know you. So that's one thing. But no, I'm not. We don't let unknowns. I've had unknowns just fucking demand to come over. I'm like, get the fuck out of here. Who the fuck do you think you are?
You, dude. Yeah, right.
Yeah. I mean, especially when they come at you like that, that's immediately I'm just like, yeah, that's not gonna happen. So
yeah, that's why I'm happy that Bill put me in charge of the invite list to his parties, because he ain't got time to look at everyone, and sometimes Bill he plays the mayor part so well, he doesn't even know who he's talking to sometimes.
You haven't done me wrong yet, MJ.
No, I will never do you wrong.
You haven't done me wrong, man.
but also too, it's like it's not small because it's gotten bigger throughout the years, but in a way, it's not hard to fucking look up somebody and see what this person's all about. And I keep it just super, like, I must know who you are if you're ever going to come on my property. But I think just having that kind of security is important if you're going to have any kind of living animal, I think. But just, I don't know. People are fucking nosy. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't live like how a lot of Florida property has it, where it's spread out and stuff like that. Like, I got neighbors, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So that's why, I mean, the only reason why I'm thinking is because I really want my laces outside, Ron. Like, I don't like the enclosure they're in right now. It's too small. I have enough space to give them something, but goddamn, am I worried? Like, and I'm sure I'll probably, talk to you outside of the podcast about how I can ensure I'm building this shit right. But you would say, though, you do got to put a lot into like the security of the enclosure that you're building outside and whatnot, right? I'm assuming.
Yeah, I mean, with monitors, I did for a long time. I've done a lot of big fucking lizards. Big lizards will test, especially monitors. They're really, really hard to keep in a list. So we use 16 gauge vinyl coated wire. It's a pain in the fucking ass to cut, but it's totally worth it. And that means that they can't get out either. So we use heavy gauge that. Nowadays, they've got really good aluminum beams that you can buy. And, but I built that huge structure behind. Well, I didn't build it, but I had somebody build it because I can't build shit. But I had a guy build that huge structure behind my house that's been in a lot of video. I know you've seen it where I had all the lace before.
Right.
And that thing, I mean, we're still using it for banana pectinata. I got rid of the lace because I thought I was staring down the barrel of a full monitor band, and I didn't want them to be stuck here and then have the market crash. My investors I didn't buy those. All those were investor money, and I was afraid they were going to lose. So I was just like, just go ahead and fucking sell them and get your money out of them, because if they get stuck here, you know, and they ban them, then there's going to be all the ones here. Everybody's going to quickly dump them on the market. And so
when did you sell the lace monitors?
I think it was like 2 years ago, maybe 3. It was in the middle of all that shit. And they were fucking laying eggs, and it sucks. I got rid of one of them, gravid, and I did get some eggs just before, but not many. And they were just really starting to fucking go. Like I had them dialed in, and that was like one of those lizards that I thought I would never own. And then I got a yard I had 9 of them, like giant Bell's Phase lace. And I was like, oh, this is the best shit ever. I used to sit on my porch. And so we built it along the back porch. And Dennis McNamara was here. Like lots of herpers would come down for various things, and we'd all sit out there and shoot the shit and watch them.
I thought you said you vetted people you let come to your house.
I was just thinking that.
I am going to bust his chops about that. I hope he's watching.
Either. Oh my God.
I have him in my phone as the Big Mac, and it's got a fucking big cheeseburger.
The Big Mac. That's awesome.
Big Mac.
I bet he's.
I love that guy, man. He's one of my favorite people to talk to at shows.
Yep.
He is
one of the guys that I call when I want to bounce some shit off and get a, you know, he's
I love Dennis.
He's not tethered. I found, for me personally, the way that I feel like I've done the best is just not to tether myself to any beliefs and be open to pretty much everything. You know, I intake information, and Dennis is one of them guys, and you can throw shit by him and you can see the fucking wheels turning as he's chopping it up and trying to see if it's bullshit or not, and what's good about it and what's bad. So he's been extremely valuable for me as a friend to have to bounce that off of.
And he just does it nonstop. I mean, not only is his collection, but he works at the, you know, he's zookeeper too.
20+ years, dude.
Yeah.
I knew I was going to like Dennis when I saw a picture of him holding a baby giraffe.
Yes.
See that picture?
That's a thing. Yeah.
He has a couple epic pictures with some mammals, man. I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
Much.
He sent me these pictures of big fucking blow up dinosaurs that he has all. He's like, this is the coolest shit. We got them all over the zoo. Sends me these things, and they're like these fucking big balloon things. I could just see him taking them home and having them in his yard.
Oh yeah, man. He has the time of his life with his kids. I love it. He's a big child. You can tell.
He's truly one of the, you know, the great people in this industry for sure.
Yeah, I would agree 100%.
Yeah.
Yep.
Love that dude.
Getting back to, you know, as far as what you're expecting this year with chondros, right? I mean, do you feel like there's going to be a time of year where you're going to stop pairing, or are you going to pair all 24/7 as long as you need to? Like,
no, everything I do, and I mean every single thing we do, is paired year round. I don't do any sort of separation. There's too much shit here for me to try to guess when things are going to be ready. I'll definitely miss stuff. So that's another reason for the larger enclosures that they have multiple zones. We basically try to pack everything they could possibly need in there. And then it's kind of like, you know, it's the God method, right? You fucking make Eden, you drop Adam and Eve in there, and then you stand the fuck back and let the fireworks go. That's kind of how.
So do you think you'll like introduce some kind of nest box into those enclosures?
Yeah, I'm actually going to use 3 different ones. I'm going to use the bird boxes that a lot of people use, the wooden bird boxes. I'm going to use a 5-gallon bucket method with a hole cut in it that I've done in the past. And then I'm debating on, and then I'm going to do something else suspended. I've been going back and forth over. I'm not really sure. Some sort of a container. I'm still looking at options. Yeah. But yeah, in general with stuff.
I wonder in that environment if they would preferably lay in an elevated nest box versus a grounded one. I have no idea. What are your thoughts, Ron? What do you think?
No, I don't know, and that's why I'm gonna do the 3 thing. To try to, like I said, I'm just with regards to that, I'm just gonna throw shit at the wall and see if any of it sticks, and if one of them works, if I find that they're all using kind of the same thing, then that's what I'll do. That's kind of been
really interesting to give them all options and see what the majority of them take.
Yeah,
I agree.
Because they're usually, with shit like that, they're usually a pattern emerges when you have enough of them. At some point you'll be like, oh, well, they're almost all doing this specific thing. So what I was thinking about doing for the ground option, honestly, was kind of using the like the tin method, but without tin. You have a box on the ground that's open top with like a piece of tin or something on top of that. They could go underneath and lay eggs like a lot of snakes do. But obviously here at that time of year, I'm not using tin because I'll have scrambled eggs.
Mm-hmm.
But
you're gonna let them maternally incubate.
Yes, but I'm not sure where yet. That's one of the things I was talking to Vin about. He gave me he mentioned some stuff about moving them and how it throws them off. And that's honestly, it's the same shit we see with the anoles. If I move them even to a cage next door, they go off feed for a week. Totally throws them into chaos. But lizards rebound faster than snakes probably, because they're a little more. Well, okay, let me rephrase that. Those particular snakes, since they're pretty, confined, they're not really big movers. I mean, they do move, but they're not out cruising like long distances and shit. They're pretty much, they have a home range, and I gotta imagine it's pretty small. Chondros is probably larger than emeralds, but
why would you move a mother on eggs? I missed something. Like if she
well, if they lay the eggs in the enclosure, and I don't. The problem is that they're outside.
Right.
So
the enclosure is big temperature swings.
Yeah, big temperatures.
Yeah, but if she's coiling them, then she can regulate the temperature, unless it's massive.
Well, unless it's 95 degrees outside.
And you wouldn't keep it outside if it's 95 degrees anyway, right?
Well, it gets 95 degrees there sometimes.
He provides shade for them to hide if that's the case, if it gets too warm. So
I had them outside in the summertime when it was north of 95 degrees. They basked until it was 97. Wow. And then they would retreat into the shaded areas and sit there, and they were fine. But again, you got to remember, this is outdoors, so at night it plunges down to 70. So they're not sitting at and those 95 temperatures, that's just a peak. Right. So it peaks there, and then obviously starts going back down. So I think that's, like, I told people that I was keeping the emeralds and stuff that way, and they're like, oh my God, they'll die. And I'm like, no, because think about where they come from. They're going to experience that kind of a range, because they're not always in the shade. And if a lot of photos that I saw of in situ animals, they were in the sunlight during the day. So if you're in South America and Indonesia, it's in the 90s during those times of the year. I mean, it's hot.
Yeah, I want to share this photo real quick because I've had this tree monitor breeder out in the UK named Chris Applin, who was on the show, but he's done like a lot of herping out there where you could find the tree monitors. And a lot of his stuff that he was showing is like he had temp guns out. I mean, you can even see how he's sweating balls right now, but it's like 92, 93 degrees out there.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about where he's standing, and he's not even getting direct sunlight. It's hot as shit out there. Like it's hot out there, and it's high humidity. Like it's
humid,
dude, constant. Like even night times, it's still like, and not obviously all year round, but dude, they face some crazy temperatures out there for sure.
Yeah, and that's what they'll see here. Like most of the year, they'll be in the upper 80s, mid to upper 80s during the day, and at night they'll be, 70-ish. And then for about 3 months out of the year, they'll be in the 90s for sure. And, their nighttime lows will be in the 80s. It's probably similar to what Bill sees in Texas, but Texas obviously gets a little hotter.
Yeah. Now,
less humid.
Now, some of these adult females, like let's just say you have adult female that is gravid chondro, right? It's in a cage with other females, or it's in its own separate cage?
They're in pairs, and I am not splitting them.
So even when she goes grab it, you just rather her do her thing with the male in there.
If for some reason I see that the male is interfering in some way, then obviously I'll remove it. I have the ability to split them if I need to.
Right.
But I also built dividers for all those enclosures that I don't intend to use. But if I do, we have pop-in dividers that'll split them into 2x2x4s.
Can the cage come off the roller if you wanted to? Like,
oh yeah, I can pick those up myself. They're super lightweight.
Why don't you just keep it indoors then, if that's the case?
What do you mean?
Like, okay, let's say the female.
Oh, the snake?
Yeah, let's say.
Dude, I have so many carts that I could put a cart just for
a gravid cart,
gravid animals, and roll it in there.
Cart.
Yeah. So yeah, we have enough space that that I could do that, and all that stuff is stuff that I just have to wait and see how they're acting. I kind of do less planning on shit like this and more kind of reaction, because actually, if you think about it, what I do, since it's all outside, it's all about reaction, right? It's, oh, today fucking sucks, I need to do X thing to make sure, you know what I mean? So it's a total reactionary thing. It took me, like I said, it took me a long time to get confident to where, and actually Heather will laugh, man, I can go outside, we have a weather report that'll say it's going to be 47, and so we use plastic to cover all the lizards during the winter, and our cutoff for that plastic is 45, but the thing will say 47, but I'll go outside and there's a certain sting in the air that I can't really describe, but
right,
and I'm like, no, it'll be lower than that here, and sure enough, almost every fucking time. Like the one night it was supposed to be 47, it was 39. And if we hadn't put the plastic on, that could have been bad for some of those things. But it just, after a while, you just get to know. Like, I know when it's not humid enough. I know when it's too cold. I know when it's too hot. And
Ron, what about hurricane season? Where do you fall and where you live?
You see the anxiety? You just said the fucking dirtiest word in the English language.
Wow.
That's a motherfucker, actually. And
are you in? I mean, I don't know Florida that well. So are you in?
Everywhere in Florida?
Everywhere is hurricane territory.
Well, I lived in Miami during Hurricane Andrew, and I will never forget that. And then I've been through a shit ton of them, and it's a nightmare. I don't know what's worse, honestly, getting hit by them or having them be heading your direction as like some superstorm, and you're just. It's like watching Jaws come at you in slow motion. Yeah. You're like, am I going to be fucking homeless in a couple days? Is all my infrastructure going to be gone? How long am I going to be without power? Because I've been without power for almost a month before.
Right.
Holy shit.
It's really unpleasant. Yeah. Especially at that time of year. That's the reason that we've been thinking about moving out of fucking Florida and moving someplace north, because the shit's starting. I mean, they've been just really bad the last few years. And this year is supposed to be one of the worst we've ever seen. And the water is super fucking hot off the coast of Florida, which means they can explode right when they're offshore. So you can, it's impossible to truly plan for. We have as much as you could possibly do. And we're far enough inland that as long as we don't get a coastal, cross Florida storm that's a Cat 5, I think in where we're currently located, that we'll be okay, other than loss of power. But man, if one of those, we've had an awful lot of really fucking powerful ones lately. And if one of those were to come ashore at like Daytona and cross Florida where we're at, yeah, it would be bad. I don't think this area can take it either, because it's never been really hit like that. Like in South Florida, they get hit often enough that they're weathered for it. But the I-4 corridor where Tampa and Orlando are, they're not fucking ready for that. And so that is something, I'm not going to lie, I fucking sweat that. I'm so glad when it starts to get cool and that shit's over. Yeah. Because from about July onward, I mean, we've got, I don't even know how many fucking animals we have here. We got to pull that. You're talking about, I would need 5 people here, and it would take an entire day to pull everything. And then where do you put it? You put it in your fucking house, and your house goes down. You put it in the building goes down. You try to run, and then you got it in a fucking van. in 90-degree heat. I mean, there's all kinds of really fucked up shit with that.
Yeah.
So are you able to get everything indoors or at least semi-protected?
100%.
You could.
That we're built for. We have the boxes. You put everything in boxes, basically. You pretend you're shipping. It's big shipping day. So that's.
I mean, I just think the idea of having shit on rollers on how great an idea to fucking, if you got to bolt out and get the fuck out of there, you got a good group of homies, everyone grabs a cart, you just run for the hills. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or you just fucking roll that shit into a goddamn huge storage truck.
And I do have, that is the one thing I do have here in Orlando. I have a really good support structure with, reptile people that are good friends of ours that are here all the time, that understand this place. And understand what to do. So we all help each other out and shit like that. But yeah, as soon as Bill said hurricane, I got anxiety. I got like a fucking wave of anxiety because it's like the worst shit.
Between me and Marshall, you're not going to sleep for a week.
No, I'm good, man. But yeah, it's really fucking, it's like the worst. That is the worst part of it. Otherwise, the weather's great here for this shit. Yeah. Right. There's really, but that's something.
And that's something you've dealt with your whole life, right? I mean, you've been in Florida like forever.
Yeah, I've probably been through 10 or 12 by now. Like when I lived in West Palm when we got hit 3 fucking times in a month. And that was fucking hell on earth. I don't ever want to do that again. And then
were you dealing with a lot of animals at that point when you had?
That's when I had all those tegus. So I had 250 tegus loose in my 2-car garage because the first hurricane buried my property under 3 feet of water, and the water did not go down for months.
Whoa! So
I was having to cycle the tegus in and out and keep them bagged up sometimes, and then feed them all and let them run around for a couple days, and then I'd bag. I was doing like 50 at a time, and then I'd bag those up and let another 50 out. So it was just it was hell. So after that, I was like.
No wonder they crashed.
Yeah, I mean that was.
And you crashed.
That probably, honestly, that was like driving nails. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. That was probably a big part of it. It was already though on its way to there. It was like it just wasn't working. So, in retrospect, I should have bailed right away. Since I realized it wasn't working, I should have said "fuck this" and just done something else. I had lots of options. I could have been farming. I could have produced a lot of chameleons. I had the system already set for that. I could have gone back to doing large scale tree frogs to get me out of the hole. But because tree frogs are always something that if I ever had financial difficulties, I could just do a whole bunch of red-eye tree frogs, and I made an entire year's worth of living, and I was good. And it was like that, like super fast.
Wow.
So that's what I always used. If something happened, I could always bail my ass out of a sling with that. And I should have done it there, but I was like, nope, this is going to work. I'm just going to keep pushing.
Yeah. Dug your heels in.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what is your backup now? Like, do you have any kind of a secure, or is it still the red eye?
Yeah. Now we have, like I said, the bearded dragons, the blue tongues, those are basically the 2 things that prop us up. Then the giant blue beauty anoles have proven to be extremely popular, and we make decent money on them, so they keep us up. So those 3 things are pretty much they're guaranteed they're going to produce every year. They all sell really well. Heather's got a huge reputation for bearded dragons, so anything she produces them, and that's her gig, really. And the blue tongue, she's building the same thing up with them.
Now, you mentioned about the roaches being something that you said the skinks thrive off of, like the invasive wild roaches that are in that area.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you deal with that is like a pain in the ass, or anything that you try to want to avoid that could fuck up anything that you keep outside? Like Uncle Mike said, fire ants and like insects and stuff like that. So just curious if there's anything you have to be concerned about.
The toads are an issue. We've actually had bearded dragons eat toads and die, so we have that set. If the toads do get in, because we do have Bufo marinus everywhere, so if they get in there and the cages are now designed in a way that they can't get in, so that was fixed. Fire ants are not a problem, but I do a monthly. They sell this shit called Amdro. It's like this bait you walk around and you drop it all over around the enclosures. So once a month once a month I'll do a ring around the whole fucking thing, which takes like 3 huge bottles, and that drives the fire ants out. You can't ever really get rid of them. You just push them out of the perimeter, and that works. And they're a non-issue. I mean, I've had huge fire ant mounds living in the cages with lizards, and not an issue. They will eat baby lizards, so the babies are like, we really keep the Amdra up and we make sure they're out. But the big stuff doesn't seem to bother.
And you're doing that baiting, you said, how often? Every other month?
Once a month.
Once a month? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Once a month, I just do a ring. And I started doing that a long time ago because the worst thing is to be digging eggs up and put your fucking hand in a fire ant nest. And I cannot tell you how many times I've done that.
No thanks.
So that's very unpleasant. But so yeah, I mean, other than that, the worst thing the only thing honestly that comes to mind that I thought could be a problem was when I walked outside a couple months ago and there was a fucking lemur in my yard.
Whoa. What?
Enclosures.
That's
it was
hard.
a big ass ring, and my stupid ass bulldog took off after it. It fucking threw its arms up in the air and started running like crazy through the property. I was trying to get the damn dog to come back because I mean, those things can fuck you up. And I was like, man, that thing's going to beat the shit out of that dog if it catches it.
Right.
But yeah, apparently one of my neighbors has monkeys and lemurs or something. I don't know. But I walked outside and it was sitting on top of the banana pectinata cage, just looking in there. And I was like, what? I thought it was a fucking cat at first because I didn't have my glasses or anything. And it was like way over there. And as I walked over to it, it turned around, its big ass fucking eyes, and threw its arms up in the air.
It's the turtle guy. The turtle guy.
No, it wasn't him. And I told him about it. He's like, we ought to catch that thing. And I was like, yeah. No.
Did they end up catching it?
No, I don't know, dude. There's so much where I live. So we're in the city, but this is all 5-acre properties, and there's a lot of animal people out here. There's horse people and bird people, and apparently monkey or lemur people, and
monkey people.
There's a turtle guy and us, and yeah, I don't know. A lot of people have like livestock and shit. So it's a strange place. You're in the city, and when you're in my area, you don't fucking know you're in the middle of like this big metropolitan area. But we're right behind the airport. So it's just weird. I don't know how long it's going to stay like this, though. They're developing the shit out of this place.
Yeah.
But it's cool. I mean, and I have indigos in my yard and gopher tortoises. So that's kind of cool.
You said your property's how many acres you got?
It's 5.
Damn, that's sick.
Yeah, it's 5 acres, and the building and the house, and so there's always there's a lot of cool shit here. I've seen big hognose snakes, and so yeah.
All right, listen, it's a hognose wrap-up question time. Okay, I got a wrap-up question for you, and then Bill or Marshall will go next. But I'm curious as far as what your game plan is with the babies that you could be potentially getting, either emeralds or chondros. Like, let's just say you have success with hatching chondros and success with baby emeralds. Are you going to want to establish these outside like you do the adults, or will you have them in a place inside for the most part? Or what's your game plan with raising up some of the stuff that you're going to be producing?
Well, for the foreseeable future, at least for the next year or two, until I know that everything here is completely fucking stable and there's absolutely no issues, we're not selling a single snake. We're just going to hold back. If we produce anything, we're going to hold them back. We're going to sit on them for a while, make sure everything's good. I don't need anybody having problems. Like I said, I've maintained this fucking reputation that I have for 39 years. I'm not about to fuck that up with these things. So until everybody's been here for 2 years, after that, then if I'm producing stuff and it's working, then I'll start selling stuff. But this first round, I was going to keep them all anyway. So, I plan to raise all the chondros to see what I get out of them for a while, because I want to look for cool shit. I'd like to have, something like Bill's sickness that is fucking like known all over the place, cool. And I'm not, I'm going to do some.
It all starts with locality. It all starts with locality crosses.
Yeah, I know. And I'm willing. See, that's the thing is so we do that with the skinks already. We actually got some shit for that in the beginning, but then people kind of realized that it needed to happen. But we consolidated the three basically the Skinkoides complex of skinks, because they each had different morphs, so we can make combos. The pet trade doesn't give a shit about whether they're pure or not. But we're also producing pure stuff, and we're going to do the same thing. If the Chondro thing works, it's going to be the same way. We'll have some pure stuff, and then we'll do some fucking crosses, because I like it. I like all that shit. I mean, I see cool crosses, and I think, wow, that's fucking badass. And then I see pure stuff, and I'm like, that's awesome.
Locality stuff.
Yeah. I agree. So we're gonna do both. That's kind of how I've always rolled, and I mean, I see the point, that people make about keeping everything pure, but the reality of it is, I mean, honestly, a lot of the shit we think is pure probably isn't. You're relying on a lot of he said, she said shit, and the further down the line you go, the less reliable that is. Yeah. Not to mention, I've been in enough rooms with people fucking, bragging about mislabeling shit to sell stuff. And over the, 40 years I've been here, I don't fucking trust locales really. Species, yeah, you can trust that because you can identify it. But locales and stuff, man, that gets real fucking tricky. And even species stuff, if you go back far enough, like if you're dependent on, let's just say, Eastern blue tongues that trace back to the 90s. Well, I hate to tell you, but in the early 90s, a fucking blue tongue was a blue tongue. And people were breeding IJs when those first came in. And I was one of the ones that was right there when those came in. I bought all the cool ones I could afford. But people were already crossing them. I crossed them with Northerns. And then I'm sure the people that bought those babies kept breeding them, and eventually they looked just like Northerns, and then they were pure Northerns at some point. And lots of people did that because, it's fresh blood. And we had these things that we hadn't been able to get, new blood for a while. So, yeah, with that stuff, man, I mean, I appreciate it all, and I definitely will do it all, but I don't put as much faith in that. I just don't see a reason to. Beyond, I think this is, we will not say for certain, even if we believe that something is pure, we always leave it open because we don't know for sure until we have DNA tests. You can't really say that.
I mean, that's true.
I mean, it's like fucking, I don't know. I just don't want to sell somebody something and then find out later on, that wasn't what we thought it was, what we were told. So
you don't want to sell no super door for ticks?
I don't know anything about that, but I've heard so much.
Bill does. Bill knows about them.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
just a little. He just knows a little.
Yeah.
All right, who wants to go next?
I'll go.
Go, Marshall.
So,
what's your favorite color? I'm just kidding.
I wonder.
Yeah. So how do you, with them being outside, because that I'm very interested in that. When I lived in Florida, I was able to just leave the windows open in the room all the time. That's as close as I ever got to being able to, keep outdoors. But so because there are times when you have extended periods of cold for a week or 4 or 5, 6 days. What are you doing with everything when that happens? Are you just wheeling it inside? Are you putting plastic over the cages like you mentioned for the lizards? Or how do you, what's your plan for dealing with that?
No, I've already dealt with that this year. They get rolled inside, and then I get a $900 fucking electric bill. That's what happens. We have 4 1,500 watt heaters that heat the big building, and then 2 1,500 watters that heat the garage. So I can get the garage up to about 90 degrees if I want to, even when it's 45 outside. And the building I keep, which is where the Chondros are. And then the reason that they're there is because they're much more amenable to lower temperatures. And they, like I said, they don't seem to give a shit. Now, one night I did leave them outside when I thought it was going to be 55-ish or so. And instead it got down in the 40s. And I thought when I woke up in the morning and realized that, I was like, oh man, I fucked them. They were fine. They didn't care. And I got them back in the building that day and heated them back up, and they were good. And they didn't get sick or anything. Yeah. I didn't know what was going to happen. But yeah, so that building I can keep around 70-ish when it's 45 out, which is enough. And then
Yeah, that's totally fine for a couple days.
one of the things we did do to that building, because it has those 4 big bay doors, is I wasn't really sure how to deal with it. So instead I took that greenhouse plastic that I use and we covered the 4 bay doors and left a gap about this big. And it turns those fucking bay doors into radiant heat panels. When the sun hits that, they get 170. Heather temp gun them at 150 or 170 degrees.
Wow.
And the heat coming off them was incredible, and it heated the building during the day. So I didn't have to run the heaters at all during the day, even if it was like 58 or 60 outside. So that worked out really well. That was a bit of a saver. So
yeah, that's why paying attention fucking pays off. Just kind of seeing what you could use in your surroundings versus using what is recommended, just kind of fucking see for yourself, and it's cool that you pay that much. I mean, I guess that kind of comes with experience, right? Doing what you're doing for so many years, that attention to detail only gets better and better, right? I can only assume.
Well, I've always been a DIY. I mean, like I said, when I started this, in the mid to late 80s, I had like $200 in the bank. My wife at the time was pregnant, and so I had nothing. She was out of a job. I was slinging subs on the side at some fucking sub place. And I was just like, fuck this. I'm going to do this. This is what I wanted to do anyway, since I was a little kid. So I figured out how to do it. So, but I've always had to kind of make do with whatever I could do. And a lot of that was getting creative from Home Depot shit and, doing it yourself. So I still do that to some degree, even though now we could technically, if we could buy the best racks and shit like that, but that kind of never left. So we still do that. Like everything is kind of, is there a solution that we can do that's pretty easy and economical and, will work for this thing? And a lot of times the answer is yes. It's not really that difficult. So that's kind of how we roll on that.
Fuck yeah. All right, Bill, wrap it up.
Okay. So Ron, whenever I get to talk to somebody on a podcast or in an individual conversation, and they're like you, somebody that has really been in it for so long, and the fact that you live in Florida, it kind of reminds me like when I got to talk to Eugene Bissett, like, just just about like the old days. So I'm going to ask you, and you can answer one of 2 questions. Either tell us like something that really crazy that you saw like back in the day that involved like an imported animal or an importation process, or if you don't want to do that, what do you miss the most about those days?
I can do both.
Okay, great. Even better.
I once was handed a poster roll that the guy was like, hey, pop that open. And I popped it open and there was a fucking big ass perennie in it. And the perennie was looking at me.
This just came off the road or something or what?
Yeah. They fucking, I don't know. They UPS'd it. I don't know what the fuck they did. It was huge. It's a big ass perennie and it was alive and they pulled it out and I was like, oh my fucking God. So yeah, that was definitely a smuggled one. That was like in the 90s, early 90s that happened. I just happened to be at this place when this guy got it in. I don't know. As far as the old days, I mean, a lot, it's kind of rose-colored glasses, right? You look back and you say, oh, there's all this cool shit and it was so much better. But I mean, there was a lot. It was cool because you got to see a lot of stuff. Like it wasn't like today. The importers were loaded and there were lots of shipments coming in of all kinds of crazy stuff. Most of it is no longer available. But there wasn't like this thing, right? The community was very, the information or intelligence side of the community was very small. There was a lot of stupid shit, a lot of dick waving crap like that. It's not really like that anymore. Now there's like all these podcasts and, sources of information and people are out there sharing. People didn't really share shit back then. Everybody was too interested in hoarding it.
Right.
So there, like I said, there was the Barkers and, Philippe de Vaugelet and all those people. So there was a lot of that, but there's way more of those people these days. So that's really fucking cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, so unlike, Eugene or Crutchfield, they were pretty old when I was. So I actually kind of grew up in this fucking industry. I was a kid. So I had this weird outlook on it, because here I am, this little kid, and there's all these, guys you hear about, and they're doing this shit. And at first it started as idol worship. And then as I got along, I was like, oh, these fuckers don't know anything more than I do from a lot of this shit. I can work this out myself. And a lot of the crap that people were saying was wrong. And
it's like Marshall. Just kidding.
So that's how I got to my process now is like that. That's why I just throw it all out. I mean, I listen to it, but I don't allow it to be a belief. And that frees me up to look for, solutions to the problems. Yeah. So, I don't know. That's been my experience anyway. I was just a little asshole kid.
That's great. I love it.
Dude, I love this podcast, man. It went by too quick. I'm not gonna lie, Ron. But it went, just better than I thought. I'm not gonna lie. This was an awesome round 2 for me. And then also just to kind of introduce you better to Bill and Marshall. I thought that was also next level. We just had just under 100 people tapped in on tonight's show. So for anyone out there who just really was inspired and just really thrown back with all the information you gave us tonight, what do you have to say to all the support that you have out there, Ron? Especially all the locals in Florida, man. A lot of Florida people in the building tonight. So what do you have to say to all the support you got out there, man?
No, I am very fortunate that this community's kept me alive for a long time. Like I can only do what I do because of all these people. So I made a hell of a lot of friends. I appreciate every fucking one of them, and that's true. So, whatever, man. I'm just trying to keep going, and hopefully people like what we do, and if they do, that's fucking awesome. And but I do.
And if they don't, Ron, what do we tell them?
They can fuck off. No.
Hey, but for people to be on top of what you have going on, what's the best place for social media to follow you? Instagram, Facebook? Where would you want to direct?
Yeah, for me on Ron St.Pierre, and then the business site is Heather's Fairy Tale Dragons is another good way.
Okay.
To keep track of what we do. I'm pretty unreliable for posting. I get bored and go play World of Warcraft for 6 months and don't touch anything else. But Heather stays on top of it. So
still a video, still a gamer.
Oh yeah, dude, that'll never stop. Like I'm sitting here on this I have a high-end gaming PC. I keep this thing up the only thing I really spend money on, man.
Dude, he keeps that up like his hydration for his animals, bro. He ain't fucking missing it. But honestly, this was an honor, and I'll put those links to those accounts in the description below. So, guys, please go give them a follow and support. But, man, give it up. It's a wrap. Ladies and gentlemen, Ron St.Pierre.
Ron, looking forward to meeting you in Daytona this year.
Yeah, I was going to say, the three of you, the door's always open. If any of you or all of you get down here, man, you let me know. We're only an hour from Daytona, and I'm serious about that. Door's open. Just let me know, and you're more than welcome to come out.
I'm down.
MJ, we might need to make a field trip.
Yep. I was already trying to make that a part of the agenda, so we'll talk about it. But again, thank you so much, Ron. Enjoy the rest of your night. I appreciate you, buddy.
Thanks. You guys too.
Thanks, Ron.
See you, Ron.
Peace. Dude, what a great fucking episode. Holy shit.
Yeah.
I'm so curious to see what happens with this regurg thing. I'm trying to figure out what's gonna happen for sure. I'm more like my eyes were wide open when he was kind of digging deep on that. Because
seems like it'd be something that's going to be able to be figured out pretty quick. Pretty quick.
Yeah, but Marshall, there's really no return on regurgitation for an emerald. I mean, that's kind of like, especially like 3 in a row. This guy went back. He did back-to-back regurges, got them not to regurg, and then he went back to regurg after that. And I'm like, whoa, like how? I'm just curious how that's going to work out. But also, like, man, fucking ballsy, and kudos to this guy for doing it,
Yeah, I mean, those kind of numbers, those are big numbers to just acquire all at once and have to figure out how to take care of them. And,
Yeah, especially in an environment that really, at least in the United States, I don't know of anybody that's keeping them that way in large numbers.
Yeah. I mean, the like, you know, step by step, right? The first thing he cares about is keeping him alive, which he has. And you know, as far as looking good and all that. But I mean, what's your guys' call on his chondro production being the way it is? You know, half, you know, majority outside and then some inside. The maternal incubation. How you think that's going to roll out? If you guys could predict.
I think with those kind of numbers he's talking about, 20 some odd pairs, I think he'll have some success for sure.
Something.
I think he'll have success, but I think he'll have a lot of loss as well.
Sure.
I mean, just, you know,
Yeah.
I mean, but no, like, you know, he's talking about trying to produce almost Socrates type numbers, you know, as far as, you know, number of females to get to go and being able to really, you know, he wants to, mass produce isn't the right word, but he wants to produce hundreds of these a year. You know, that's his goal, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean,
Somebody has to do it.
it ain't gonna be this guy. That's for damn sure.
Yeah, I'm keeping my happy ass where I need to keep it, and that's not in the mass production side of things. But you know, he's been doing it 40 fucking years though. Like, you know, you gotta know your place in this game first and foremost. And Ron St.Pierre is known to swing for the fucking fences, and he don't care who says what. Like he said, he even said the importer was like, "Why are you doing this? Like, don't do this." And he's like, "Nah, fuck off. I want to buy this shit." And he did. So God bless him. Let's see what happens. And we'll know.
I wouldn't bet against him.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. But I appreciate you guys so much. Marshall Mendez, Red Mountain Herbs on Instagram. Go give him a follow. And again, shout out to Bill Stiegel on that most recent clutch, buddy. I'm rooting for you. Hope
Yeah, congrats, man.
Wait,
Thanks,
hold
man.
on. Back to Marshall though. Where dude, you're pretty close here, buddy. What's going on with your two
Yeah,
clutches?
you're close to an epic clutch too.
What's going on?
Any minute now. I'm walking on eggshells over here. No pips yet.
He was like, "Oh, I hope they don't even fucking ask." You're mad that we even asked you right now, huh? Holy
What
shit!
what day are you sitting at right now?
I think today it's either 50 or 51.
Ooh, tonight it's going down tonight, probably or tomorrow. 52.
We'll see. You know, now is when starts to get. I did them a little bit cooler than usual, so I don't know if they'll go 52, 53, but it's always like, you know, God, man, are these things going to pip or are they all just going to die? You know, till that first one comes out. Oh yeah, I've lost a couple. I think a lot of the one clutch, the one and done clutch, a lot of them initially were slugs. But I think I still have, I counted right before, I have 5 left from that one. And I think 10 or 11 from the other clutch. So,
and they're pretty close, right?
Yeah, one day apart.
1 day apart, yeah.
Yeah.
It's exciting.
Do you have any moisture on any of the eggs right now, or no? Like anything showing any kind of like wetness? Or no?
One clutch was very thin shelled, and a couple of those are starting to get a little bit of mold on them. But at this point, you know,
is what it is.
Yeah, I'm not that worried about it. Other clutch looks pretty much perfect. You know, pearly white, little thicker shelled. So I don't know. We'll see.
Indentation.
Starting to dent. Yeah. So we'll see.
Right on.
Exciting stuff, man.
Yep. And then obviously, Bill, you're right behind, man. I'm looking forward to see what happens with the eggs that you have cooking at the moment. But best way to stay on top of what's going on for both these guys is Instagram. All right. Red Mountain Herbs and of course Phoenix Reptiles. Guys, enjoy the rest of your night. I appreciate you guys as always, and we'll catch you here next week. All right.
See ya.
We'll see you guys then.
All right. Give us my 2 boys. Later, guys. Have a good night.
Take care, guys.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for everyone who tapped in. What a banger. Ron St.Pierre, that was gold, my man. I appreciate it. Definitely was like, what the hell is this guy? What did he just say? 3 times? And then the whole mind-blowing. He could really, really be onto something. But maybe he's not, which I'm glad he also said, dude, I could be fucking completely off. And it's awesome that he owned that, because he's also just saying, look, this is what I'm working with. This is what I'm experienced with. So don't, be taking my word for it too closely. But shout out to you, Ron. I appreciate it. And I appreciate anyone who tapped in tonight. If this is your first time hanging out, hit that subscribe button. Hit that notification bell, select all. You'll be reminded of every single podcast. Don't forget, tomorrow night, Brandon Wheeler coming on Cush's Corner for episode 4, I think. Damn. think he's killing it, man. Good for you, Kush. Episode 4 right here on Trap Talk Reptile Network. Set that reminder. And then you'll catch me here live Thursday night. All right. I'm going to let you guys know what is really in store with changing my podcast to a Trap Talk network, what the whole reason was behind that. And going to speak my mind on some other stuff as well. So make sure you guys tap in for my Thursday night episode. Looking forward to catching up with a lot of you guys. And also, if you're looking for exclusive content, very first link in description below. Click on it. Join the Trap Talk Patreon family. Come tap into the Discord. Over 200 people in the Discord. Instagram group chat is cracking with the Trap Talk Patreon family. So appreciate all the love and support, guys. You guys are amazing. But more importantly, enjoy the rest of your night. And I'll catch you guys here tomorrow for Kush's Corner. Have a good night. This is a wrap for episode 469. Damn it. We are right there by 500. Epic. All right, guys. Have a good night. I'm out. Cheers.